All right, here we go. In response to Governor Baker's declaration of a public health emergency and the related emergency executive order dated March 12, 2020, Town of Scituate public meeting shall meet remotely until further notice. This meeting will be recorded and will be posted following the meeting. Public comment will be available via Zoom. We're going to use that reaction option, and we'll go. Sorry. Did you hear any of that?
We lost you after. Just start over with the public comment piece.
Right. Public comment will be available by Zoom. We're going to utilize the reaction option at the bottom of the screen. I'll go over that as we enter or prior to entering public comment. Please note the chat function will be available, but note that it's only going to go to the school committee members. The public will not see the chats. It's our intention to take those under advisement, but we're not going to be responding to chats tonight. You also can email me at pgates@sit.org with questions. With that being said, I'd like to call the Scituate School Committee meeting Thursday, August 6, 2020 to order at 6:06. Roll call vote. Brandolini.
Yes.
Gates, yes. Hayes.
He's muted.
Lindblom.
Yes.
Yes, Hayes, yes.
Okay. Unanimous. Meeting is now in order.
What about Mike Long?
Long.
Yes.
You already said it.
We're not getting off the hook.
I knew you were thinking about
Please
it.
call that man in.
Mr. Long, thank you. All right.
Present.
Thank you all for attending. We just broke last week's record. We have 321 participants on this call. We thank you all for tuning in. We're going to do the best that we can here. Again, as always, if I have technical difficulties, my vice chair, Mike Long, will take over as the chair, and I will log back in. Before we move on, I'd like to welcome our newly hired Director of Business and Finance, Dr. Bob Dutch. He's in attendance today. His first school committee meeting in Scituate. Comes to us with a long history, and we are very excited to have him here with us as he replaces the very well esteemed Mr. Donlan. So thank you, Bob. Looking forward to working with you.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to being on the team.
Excellent. All right, now for onto the agenda, acceptance of minutes. I just need a motion to approve the June 1st, 2020 minutes.
It looks fine to me, so I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Motion by Mr. Hayes. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Lindblom. Roll call vote. Brandolini.
Yes.
Gates, yes. Hayes.
Yes.
Lindblom.
Yes.
Mr. Long.
Yes.
The minutes are approved unanimously. Moving right along into old business. We're going to be reviewing the updated and revised 2020-2021 school calendar. I'd like to hand that over to Superintendent Burkhead.
Thank you, Chairman Gates, and welcome everyone. It's a record crowd here tonight, and I don't know whether that's because Dr. Dutch is here tonight or one of our other guests is Dr. Lane, our school physician. So one of them brought in a number of new guests. So welcome everybody. It's great to be here. I'd like to start off with celebrating some great news. This past Saturday, I was able to participate in the graduation of our 2020 seniors. It was a beautiful sunny morning out in the turf, and it was really nice to see those families and our graduates celebrate together. And there was a lot of happy people. And it was just really uplifting and nice to see. I want to give a thank you to Dr. McGuire and assistant principals Louette and Hughes and their team for all the preparation that went into the graduation. It went flawlessly. I also want to thank and give a sailor shout out to Bob Dillon and our custodial and maintenance teams as they worked diligently in the heat in preparation for and in breaking down the event again seamlessly. So all the behind the scenes work is very much appreciated. And those seniors and their families, as well as the staff, school committee members, select board that were able to participate either via community access television or in person. I'd like to thank you all. So the school calendar, I'll try to make this as painless as possible, but there are some mitigating factors that went into these changes. Some of them we may be aware of. Some of them will be news tonight. The first being the 10 days that the Commissioner of Education has allowed schools prior to the first day or in place of the first 10 days of school, reducing the number of school days from 180 to 170. So we had to recalculate that into our calendar, as well as the 3 furlough days that we'll be notifying the staff that committed to this in an MOA and some through non-union negotiations last year. Those dates will come into play here. I do want to thank those staff. In these tight budget times, that was a huge sacrifice to make to allow our budget to move smoothly and to allow this year to be a productive one by making that sacrifice. So that played into some of the days of change due to that. In effect, the first day of school, for those folks out there that don't have the calendar obviously in front of them now, I can, will be September 16th. And the reason for that is twofold. The commissioner directive with the 10 days was that you may start no later than September 16th. And so if we started at September 16th and we back up 10 school days, knowing the staff have September 4th and the 7th off by contract, those 10 days bring you to the first staff day, which will be August 31st. Their contract states they cannot start work before the STA before the first Monday of school, which is the 31st. So that works out nicely. So in a little background to that, previously the professional days for the staff were the August 26th and 27th. The 27th is now a furlough day. The 26th is moved to what you see now as the 25th, no school students, but the teachers will be in for PD. So that was the 26th day. Via the MOA, that was the 4th date that was not taken, was saved. And the reason for the 25th date is that we wanted the students to be able to have a first full week of orientation and then set of classes the week of the 21st. We also think, even though there's 10 days prior to students getting in, there's going to be some acclimation needed the first week and a half of students coming back. So that day we thought felt perfectly for us to reassess how the first week and a half went, how orientation went, how we can reassess and get ready for the following Monday. The other furlough day was originally was the September 24th. So instead of having back-to-back days off in the first couple of weeks, we moved that 24th date to December 23rd. So that's new to this calendar. So that's, and it makes sense there, just adding it to the vacation where it's not just sitting there in the middle of a week, interrupting learning. So that was the reason for that. And then you'll notice on March 4th, that was the 3rd furlough day. So that's why there's no school for staff or students. And then lastly, because we moved the start date from the 2nd to the 31st, the 180th day will now be June 18th instead of the 21st. So, and finally, we're only asking that you discuss and vote on the front calendar. On the back is typically school hours and contact numbers, but since part of the proposal in our plan may involve changing or staggering start times, we want to hold off on that until we work that out and negotiate that, and then we can come back and fill that in later. Well, I'll take any questions or feedback.
Are there any questions from the committee?
I think the only one I have, Bill, is this updated calendar going to go out to the community either later tonight or tomorrow, just so that they can see the updated calendar?
100%. And thank you, Mr. Long. I want to add, so that people listening will also know, I know I said the first day of students, but also some other important dates that are on there, should this be voted or improved tonight, is first day of kindergarten would be the 17th of September, and the first day of early childhood would be the 21st of September. And we'd get this out tomorrow.
I just want to make, my only reason for making that comment, I want to make sure that it goes out to the community versus just having it updated on the district website, because while 372 people might know that tonight, I want to make sure everybody, knows about that change.
I agree, absolutely.
I just have one comment too. Not that we can predict much ahead, but just making sure, maybe you all already thought about this, making sure that there's a equity in the days off for different cohorts, and this, you know what I'm trying to say. So it doesn't always fall on one set group that there's no school, but maybe you've already done that.
We actually did. Well, thank you for bringing that up. And it was from, one of the community members or parents had brought it up, and we counted them, and they're pretty consistent within a couple of days, or one of each. So we did calculate that and consider it. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions from the committee?
All set.
No.
On here.
All right, I need a motion.
I move to approve the revised 2020-2021 Scituate school calendar for page 1 only as presented.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Long, second by Hayes. Gates, yes. Lindblom,
Yes.
Long,
Yes.
Brandolini,
Yes.
Hayes.
Yes.
All right, the calendar is voted on unanimously. And you all can expect to see that tomorrow in its calendar format, as you're used to. All right, moving on. This is the first phase for comments, statements, or questions from the public. If you have a question or comment at this point, please use the reaction smiley face with the plus at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and I will attempt to identify you. I do just want to, I meant to do this at the beginning, but I want to state again for those who are new or for those that were here last time, I appreciate the fact that you all understand that as a school committee, we're working on updating and revising our meeting protocols. As we do that, in the interim, I just wanted to review a couple that are important, especially as we come to this first period of public comment. We acknowledge that a school committee meeting is a meeting of the school committee that is held in public, not a public meeting. And we will make every effort to ensure that the committee meetings are effective and efficient. I also want to note that these school committee meetings are our opportunity as school committee members to be together as a group. We are restricted otherwise due to open meeting laws to otherwise be together. We're conducting our business in this format and hope that you all can appreciate that we're doing the best that we can. We hope to have formal protocols that we will review in public at some point over the next several weeks. But again, as we enter this first phase of public comments, wanted that to be known. Unfortunately, we may not be able to respond to every question. If not, I hope you can respect that. So I have in order, Nicole Gracia.
Hi, thanks, Peter. I'm Nicole Gracia. I'm a grade 1 teacher at Scituate Public Schools and co-president of the Scituate Teachers Association. And we just have a statement to share that's been endorsed by our executive board and also gotten input from several universities across the South Shore who are also looking to endorse it in their associations. We did share this with Superintendent Burkhead and our school committee members this afternoon. But we felt it was important for those that attended tonight to hear the statement because we've been asked a lot about how we feel. So
I'm sorry, I'm going to beg everyone's pardon, Peter, and I'm going to ask to be heard on this.
Sorry, Mike.
I'd like to make a comment before this statement is read.
Okay, I will allow that.
I'm respectfully requesting that to the executive board of the STA that this statement not be read. I do not think that this statement reflects the vast majority of the teachers in Scituate who are members of the STA. I think this statement, if read publicly tonight, will create a lot of unnecessary angst and anger and confusion among parents and teachers. And I see no useful purpose to having this publicly read at a school committee meeting. We're at step one of a long journey to getting kids back in school. And I have heard from numerous Scituate teachers who do not feel that the time is right for this type of statement to be read because we have a long way to go to determine what our schedule is going to be, what we're going to do, and when, and that there is a lot of work that needs to be done, and the work that needs to be done with the task force and the Safe Start initiative that needs more teacher input. And I think that reading the statement at this time is a disservice to the Scituate Public Schools, the parents of Scituate teachers, and the 3,000 students of the Scituate Public School. And that's my comment and my request.
Okay. Nicole, I'll leave it in your.
oh, that's not really what I want left in my hands. I feel that I completely respect what Mr. Hayes is saying. I feel that this statement was thoughtfully prepared with our teachers in mind and got feedback from our staff and our members. But I don't know if Eileen or Greg want to step in. I feel like I'm kind of on the spot here. I don't know.
One of the complaints I have about this statement being read is that this is a document that was prepared by the State Teachers Association.
Oh, Mr. Hayes,
No.
it's
No.
not the MTA statement. This is the personal statement that we sent you today along in that email. This is a statement coming from our group. It's not the MTA statement.
Okay. Was there any plans to read the MTA statement tonight?
Not at this meeting. We felt very strongly that the MTA
Oh,
statement
803.
was a call to the state and our government. We felt that we needed a localized statement to speak to this audience because it is a completely different conversation when we talk about Scituate, and felt really strongly that this statement was a means to continue the collaborative relationship that we have had over the last few years.
Well,
Okay,
that's good.
at this point-
did not see.
Mike, at this point, I'm just going to let Nicole decide whether or not she wants to read it or not.
Well, I would, given what she has just stated, I wholeheartedly want to hear the STA's statement.
Okay. It was provided to us earlier, but that's okay. Nicole, it's up to you. The floor is yours. You have 3 minutes.
I hope you agree when I'm done, Mike. Okay, so our statement is, many educators feel that August is the Sunday night of summer. It's a month-long balance between holding on to every last moment of sunshine and preparing for all of the excitement that a new school year brings. This August is unlike any other long Sunday night from our past. This August is that gray winter afternoon with the sky letting loose slow swirling snowflakes that begin to pile up as we walk to our cars. It's the afternoon that you can't help but wonder if the meteorologists or our own Steve McGuire were correct. As the snowflakes grow thicker, the commute home slipperier, you wonder, will we get the call? Will it be safe enough for all of us to attend school tomorrow? To our administrators and school committee members, we do not envy your positions. You have been placed in an impossible situation. The decision you are facing now is one that we know weighs on you with each news article you read and each discussion you have. To our families, we stand with you. Many of us have school-aged children and have experienced similar challenges presented during this unprecedented time. We understand and empathize. To our students, we miss you and want nothing more than to be safely back in the classroom with you. As educators, we wholeheartedly desire to return to school in person. If we've learned anything in the last few months, it's that nothing replaces face-to-face interactions between students and educators in a safe and supportive environment. However, our collective priority over these coming weeks must be to do what is in the best interest of the children we serve and the educators who work with them. The health and safety of everyone who attends or works in our schools must continue to guide every decision we make as a school community. We appreciate the commitment to physical distancing as well as adequate PPE for staff. We also acknowledge there are varying outside scientific studies. In order for safety to be paramount in our decision-making, comprehensive health and safety measures need to be utilized to fully understand our readiness and the needs of our buildings. Some of these needs include addressing air ventilation systems, ensuring effective protocols around physical distancing, while recognizing the unpredictability of human nature, and establishing procedures for screening and contact tracing. The results of these health and safety assessments should be shared with personnel, the community at large, and the school committee so the most informed decisions possible can be made by all. Until these assessments are performed and the concerns from those assessments are thoughtfully addressed, it will be impossible for us to feel safe and confident beginning the school year with any form of in-person education. Our schools are places of community building, compassion, and collaboration. Concerns around the social emotional impacts of physical distancing, facial coverings, and heightened anxiety are real. Classrooms, hallways, and common areas will not be the ones we remember. It will be challenging for our youngest students to build relationships through play with a required 6 feet between each other. Educators will have a difficult time comforting students in emotional distress. No longer will teachers be able to hold small group lessons in class to meet their students' needs. Students will be expected to sit in one place and facing one direction for long periods of time, eschewing all of the work we have done to create communities where the need for movement, flexibility, and creativity have been honored. Books, manipulative tools, equipment, and other hands-on teaching materials cannot be shared due to concerns with contagion. These are among the reasons that we feel a robust remote learning model led by our teachers is the safest, most practical, and nurturing way to begin the school year. Will it be safe enough? The slippery roads ahead of us need to be navigated slowly and with the utmost care. We cannot risk the life or well-being of even one individual with a premature in-person return to school buildings. With a disappointing lack of leadership from the Department of Education and other statewide agencies, the safety of our students and educators has been left to our local officials. As this is a blizzard with unprecedented and unknown consequences, the only prudent decision is to begin the year remotely with the goal of moving toward a hybrid model as safety benchmarks are met.
Thank you, Nicole. Could you just, I'm sorry if you already did, could you just state your name and role in the district?
Nicole Gracia, grade 1 teacher and STA co-president.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you.
Okay. Jennifer O'Neill.
Thanks, Peter. Jennifer O'Neill, Gannett Road. I'm a parent of a student at Scituate High School. I have a question, just a clarifying question on the calendar. I know that the first day of school for students will be the 16th. The last day will be, tentatively for the 18th. And then there were additional days listed that were, I believe, 12/23 and 3/4. But there was one that we need clarification on, as well as will the calendar release tomorrow include late starts, early releases, and other important dates like graduation and things that are usually included on the calendar? That's it. That's my question.
Mr. Burkhead, would you be able to respond?
Yes, absolutely. The answer to the question is yes. All the typical holidays and other days off or early release days will also be on there. Yes, I didn't quite understand the first part of the question about a certain day. Did you have a question?
So you had listed the furlough days, I believe, as 12/23 and 3/4, but then you were saying they were being swapped out. So I think some people may have missed what the third furlough day was going to be.
Sure. Thank you for clarifying. That third day would be September 25th.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you. Jen, can you unraise your hand, lower your hand, unless you have another question? Ms. O'Neill? Thank you. All right, seeing no other questions at this time, there will be another
Sorry.
for public comments.
Can I ask
Now moving, sorry, yes, go ahead, Nicole.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Just, it's a calendar question before we go on. Maybe this is a school committee question because I'm just curious. I don't know when we should discuss this, but it's I'm just wondering what everyone's thinking, school committee members, about, and Mr. Burkhead, about snow days. And now that obviously we have some virtual or lots of virtual things that are going to happen, do we need, is that on the table to say like snow days, we don't really need that in our lives anymore?
So I can just give some generic comment, then I'll defer to Mr. Burkhead. But Nicole, I think you'll recall, and all the school committee will recall, that Scituate was a leading district when it came to the thought process on those blizzard bags.
Yeah.
And the state ultimately said that did not qualify as time on learning. So we needed to abandon that. So I'm going to defer to Mr. Burkhead whether or not we'll be able to utilize time on learning remotely in this particular scenario. Mr. Burkhead.
Thank you, Chairman Gates. Yes, in fact, it's a great question. The commissioner did come out recently and state that in responding to a question from one of the superintendents that he would allow under the circumstances this year only because of school districts' preparedness and to present remotely our education, that he would allow snow days to remote days from home on snow days count as school days. So that could be something we discuss with another agenda item and consider. Certainly, I think it's a worthwhile consideration.
All right, great.
Great, thank you. Okay, I think this is why all 415 participants have joined us today. Thank you on this lovely Thursday evening. I know we all have better things to be doing. The next item of business is Scituate Safe and Strong Reopening Final Plan. Before I hand it over to Superintendent Burkhead, I just want to preface this by saying I have someone who is not on mute here. Mr. Hayes. Here we go.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I'm going to hang up because I just got on.
Okay. Just want to say that this is a plan that Superintendent Burkhead is providing to us. This is not he did not devise this plan on his own. I'm sure he will communicate all the different various groups and experts who are involved in this. I just want to commend the entire district, Superintendent Burkhead and all of his staff for putting in the timeless hours to get to where we are today. We thank you. We as a school committee have a very difficult decision to make, which we will not be making tonight, but we will be voting on Monday. There are going to be lots of questions. Mr. Burkhead again will explain that once we review this plan, that everyone will have a copy of the entire document tomorrow. Just want to remind everyone, this is a coordinated effort by everyone in the district, in the town. It's been an amazing effort by all of those involved, and I don't think we've had to overcome a challenge like this before. So with that being said, I'd like to hand it over to Superintendent Burkhead, who now is, 35 days into his tenure. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Gates. And back to your original statement, actually, I had no plans tonight, so I have no better place to be than here. So I'm pretty excited. I'm excited because like you said, a lot of hard work went into this plan. 35 days, there's people working 15, 20 hours. I know the school committee is putting in all these extra hours in correspondence and, feedback. So I appreciate all your efforts. Our staff, parents, families, eagerly awaiting this news. In the time frame that we've had to do it, some districts have had, months to think and prepare about this. I think our time frame has helped us because it allowed us to look at other plans and to get more feedback from our constituents. And I'm really proud to be here because we've had thousands of emails that we've received, hundreds of comments on school committee meetings, multiple hours spent on forums with students, staff, and families, and multiple meetings of our task force, our Safe and Strong task force, and daily long meetings of our steering committee. So I just want to reiterate that all the information sent to us was individually read. Every email was responded to, taken seriously. There's no more important job in my life right now than this. And so I think everybody that took part in this feels that way. And so without further ado, one person that's been instrumental in this plan is our own school physician, Dr. Stephen Lane. He's a Scituate physician. I just met him the first week I started the job, and I have found that whenever I call, email, text, he responds right away. And that's really, really helpful to me as superintendent in these times when a lot of this information has to deal with medical articles and research and those types of things. So I want the community to know that Dr. Lane has been very available and very involved in this planning. He has reviewed the document. So he's here tonight, and I want to thank him for being available, and just wanted to give him a minute to just introduce himself and say a few words before I get into the actual presentation.
Thanks. Thank you for the invitation. Certainly happy to be a part of the process. I guess just a few quick comments. We understand that there are health risks to students and staff getting back into the schools, and we understand the importance of getting back to in-person learning. And I think it comes down to a risk-benefit analysis weighing these two issues. I've read through the superintendent's plan, and I feel that it places safety first, allows for the flexibility, and it allows for us to quickly shift gears if that becomes necessary. Last thing I'll say is that the medical community, including the American Academy of Pediatrics, are in support of getting students back into the schools. And with the precautions outlined in the superintendent's plan, with the continued low number of cases in our community, I'm hopeful that this hybrid model that you're about to present will allow us to successfully and safely return to in-person learning. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Lane, very much. Before I present, I will say that tonight is presentation is an overview of the plan, and that the school committee received today the 63-page comprehensive document that will outline in detail what I'm presenting tonight. The school community will receive that tomorrow morning, and it will be posted on our website. So not only will we post on our website, kind of like Mr. Long said earlier, that we want to also get that out there in people's inboxes as soon as possible in the morning, so you can read this. We've also included in the 63-page document a pretty comprehensive frequently asked questions portion. So all that information we're taking in that wasn't, or we felt wasn't specifically covered in the plan or needed further explanations, we teased that out and included it in a frequently asked questions portion. And we'd be happy to add to that portion of the document as more questions come in about the specific document. I will say up front, like Dr. Lane, after receiving all this information and basically consuming myself these last few months with the information, the medical research, feedback from our community, and my own personal vision and values, I believe that students need to come back to school. And I think it always comes down to a question of safety. And I think this plan presents that. And I think it also reflects the values and vision and support of all the people involved in doing this. So I think it's, back to what I originally said, it's, no plan is perfect, but I believe this plan is best for Scituate and for our students, families, and staff. And I also believe that it's extremely flexible. It's a great strength of this plan. Where no plan is perfect, this plan allows us to transition in and out of phases should metrics dictate. And so I'll start, if I can, you could let me know if you could see this, Chairman Gates, in 1 second.
Yep.
You have my screen?
Not yet.
Have you allowed me to be presenter?
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna try something else here.
I can try to make you a host as well.
I think I have to put share screen. Maybe you might have to make me a host. Okay. Share screen.
Here we go.
Okay,
Yep, we can see it now.
thank you. Okay, so the concepts we originally presented are still hold true. A phased-in plan. Certainly agree with what's been said to date about going slow, taking it in a phased-in approach, not rushing things, but also keeping in mind that the longer students are out of school, the more they regress and the more their social emotional learning is impacted. So our go slow to go fast, I think, motto is reflected in this plan. It's not a full return to school, it's a hybrid model where at all times, approximately 50% or less of the student body is in the school, but they are exposed to school and to interactions with peers and their teachers. It goes back to our guiding principles that were decided on by our task force from feedback from our community. And just to reiterate, the word culture is emphasized in this presentation. It's really important that it's a culture of safety. As we know that back to school plans will be impacted by our mitigation factors of hand washing, staying home when sick, social distancing, and other factors. So that culture of safety has to be embraced by our staff, our students, and our families. It's a community commitment, so that's important. Similarly to what we're doing statewide. It's everyone's responsibility. Next is a culture of excellence. I think our plan does a nice job incorporating rigor and also social emotional learning. And we do that in all the plans. And the other part of this is too, this framework here, you know, I think Mr. Hayes said it earlier, we're gonna, now, once the plan gets approved and we present it, we're gonna need our teachers' input and support and our coordinators and our directors. They're professionals. They need to put the meat on the bone of this plan and help us with the specifics of what it's gonna look like in the classroom. And it will look different. There's no question about that. But I think that's the beauty of educators. They're the smartest people I know. They're the most creative. In fact, I married one. And so the important part of this is, I think this framework, even though 6 feet apart, even though the pictures I'll show you of our classrooms tonight may look a little sterile, they're very clean. I think the importance of interactions with their teachers in person, with the social connections made with their classmates is vital. So that excellence, whether we're remote or in school, is in this plan. The last one is kind of a three-prong in one. Flexibility, I think we all live that, and I appreciate the school committee's flexibility and drafts that we've shared, and the school community and their flexibility, and patience also could be added to this, I guess. The next one is respect. I really want to emphasize this. I think although emotions are high on this topic and sometimes people are stressed, I have had, in the thousands of email conversations, in-person conversations, and phone conversations that I have had since being in Scituate, not one has been negative or disrespectful. And I just think that's amazing, and I want to share that with our community. We met with a group of teachers and family members today in one of our school programs, and it was a very thoughtful and respectful conversation. And I just want to kind of emphasize that as we move forward, there'll continue to be difficult conversations, and there'll continue to be disagreements, and I think that's healthy. That's how we get better and do what's best for our children. But I just want to keep reiterating that respect is key, and that we hold our composure and we do so respectfully. And the last one is teamwork. I think Chairman Gates said it. It's not my plan. Certainly, I endorse it. I'm putting my name on it. I back this 100%. I have full confidence in it. But I'm also a team player. I think we've been fully transparent. I think we've been fully inclusive. I don't think there's anybody out there that can say they didn't have an opportunity to share their opinion and it was not heard. Certainly people may disagree, but every single email was taken, every single voicemail was accepted and reported out on, and all notes from meetings were shared, and correspondence, etc., forums included.
Mr. Burkhead.
Yes, sir.
Just getting a couple of comments that not everyone is muted. I'm going to mute everybody right now, and then I'm going to probably come in and unmute you if you just wait 2 seconds till I do that.
Yes.
All right, everyone is now muted.
I can unmute myself, Chairman
Yep.
Gates.
Okay, looks like we're good.
Okay, proceed.
Yes, please.
Thank you. All right, so we got some good feedback about our color-coded continuum. And his simple version is obviously, I'll lay it out a little more detail in this presentation, and it's much more detail in our document that will go out tomorrow. I'll start left to right. The green full in-person learning plan is the old normal where students return without any mitigating factors. There's a vaccine or a cure. Teachers are obviously in the building, students without any limitations. So that's green. Yellow is next. This is a full in-person plan with safety protocols. This would be all students returning in person in accordance to DESE's guidelines, 3 to 6 feet of appropriate social distancing and meeting all the DESE and DPH metrics, Department of Public Health. Teachers are in the building with all students. The next phase up would be orange. This is our recommendation to the school committee. It's a hybrid learning plan in which students return for instruction, and there's a combination of in-person learning and remote learning. teachers are in the building, and we're committed to, in this model, 6 feet of social distancing. The red is our new Scituate Online Learning Academy, or SOLA. And already I want to thank our department chairs and coordinators and Ms. Arnold for getting together and starting to lay this out, and also our principals for spending a lot of time on this. No matter what happens, there's going to be a portion of our learning that's remote. And what we want to make sure is, if that, back to that culture of excellence, and we want to make sure that, and all the feedback we got, is that we're following the standards, we're following the curriculum. There's daily contact with our students, and it's as much as consistent as in-school learning as possible. So that's red, and then the blue is our fully remote learning plan. Families will have an option, the orange hybrid plan, or to remain fully remote. And if they choose in our plan to go fully remote to begin the year, this plan is suggested to go for the full year, but there may be folks, and this is a frequently asked question, if I start out fully remote and at some point want to come back to a hybrid model, may I? And this is explained in our document. The answer is yes. However, there's maybe up to a four-week transition period to allow us to connect with families, make sure there's health protocols followed, make sure we're not mixing students, we're adding students wisely, and those are the state guidelines. So I want families to know that up front, that is in the document. But that will be a learning management platform, since our teachers are teaching their full classes in the hybrid model. The learning management platform I'll get to near the end. We use that pretty successfully with our high school students. There's elementary and middle school versions, but that will also involve back to that commitment of contact with a Scituate Public Schools teacher or paraprofessional, oversight, reinforcement, and contact. So after we presented our last, our last model, our draft of this hybrid model, we sent out a quick survey to families and asked them, here's the question under these preliminary hybrid plan, would you send your student to school or go remote? And those are the two options. That was the plan. And as you'll see here, an overwhelming number of parents with those two options, 84.44% said yes, and 15.55 said no. So I think that's a really important data point. Not the only one, but certainly helped us in our decision making. Now here's the measured approach to reopening that we talked about with dates now. And again, the document that will be shared tomorrow goes into even more detail. But I think it's important that the community see these dates, and the school committee hears them as well. So the 31st through the 15th is the 10 days that Department of Education has allowed for training. And we expect to use this time wisely for professional development, training and preparation for safety measures, and for welcoming our students. And this is a part where, and I know everyone's thinking, well, what's the training going to look like? We have a leadership retreat coming up within 2 weeks. A lot of that time will be spent on preparation for that training and organization of that training. So that will be a well-run and well-organized 10 days to prepare our staff. And we'll also need, obviously, staff feedback on what and how they could benefit from that training. The next phase is the start of school, the opening day of September 16th, which is a Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I think we got a lot of positive feedback and believe strongly in orientations when children and family are to come back, whether they choose the hybrid model or not. This could be done in person or via Zoom. But each school will have a planned out approach to bring students in small groups and get them prepared to receive their materials, learn all the safety protocols, reinforce them, and talk about the hybrid piece of the curriculum, and also huge piece, focus on relationships, getting to know our children right away, first week of school. And then in the evenings, there will be parent forums and orientations as well. We believe it's important to that community, back to that community piece, that it's a whole community event. Clarify policies and procedures with our parents, answer their questions, and make sure that we're all on the same page to lead into phase 3, which will be students begin their hybrid model. So now they've been oriented, the parents have been oriented, questions have been answered, staff has been trained and prepared, and the phased-in approach now brings the students into school in a hybrid model. Oops. So the focus on academic learning with continued support for social emotional needs. Sorry about that. Just trying to get this out of the way. Okay. I'm sorry, I got the Zoom covering my screen, and I got some other stuff, so I'm trying to clean up I can't read my own document. All right, here we go. So the elementary hybrid during the orange phase. This is interesting. We spent a lot of time going back and forth with the task force debating which model. Initially, we were kind of committed to every level, elementary, middle, and high, have the same model. But as we received more feedback and talked more about pre-K through 5 being the high priority group, along with other groups of students, we felt more and more, or leaned more and more towards the AM/PM model, which is cohort-based, and a cohort is basically approximately half your students by alphabet. And again, that will be spelled out in the plan. And we did that because it was obviously an overwhelming response by families to keep families together. So we'll have information going out, and if there's families with different last names, we'll accommodate that. So we want to make sure that the families are in the same cohorts, K through 12, pre-K through 12. So in this example, Monday and Tuesday, the cohort A, let's say A, last names A through L, will be in person for a half a day in the morning, and then cohort B will be remote as they wake up. Then the students in cohort A would go, and we have the times in the document, approximately 2.5, 3 hours, would go home for half a day, and then the PM cohort B would come in, and that stays consistent for those 2 days. And then Wednesday is a full day remote. And we thought this was very important. This back into go slow to go fast. We felt that 5 days right off the bat, coming in with all students was a little bit too fast, and I think that was what this feedback showed us. We looked at other models that districts are using, and this was a common one, and so we adopted it. So all students will be home on this day. However, in the morning, it gives us an opportunity for our teachers to connect with their students. So there still could be that face-to-face contact over Zoom or Google Meet. And then also that gives us the opportunity for students with special needs, working on evaluations with parents, contacting parents, having meetings, either remotely or in person. So it gives us that whole morning on Wednesdays to do a variety of different things to support learning and to support our families and students. It also allows us to do a deep cleaning of the school, which is spelled out in the document. Obviously, a more thorough opportunity for our custodial team to get into the buildings without people in them. The teachers will be there, but without students. And in the afternoon, teacher collaboration and PD, and this is unique in any schedule. Typically, this is done monthly. I've always been a proponent of weekly PD. I know Finland does this a lot. I think they might even do daily PD with their teachers and find it very successful. Why it's important in this model is because this is really all brand new. We'll be learning things new day, and the teachers will be creating a lot of this, as they go, as we learn. So we have to adapt and learn and give teachers time to kind of meet. It also allows us, with our Zoom technologies now, to have teachers across the district meet to make sure our curriculums are aligned, our scope and sequence are being followed. And I think that's a huge advantage for us, It'll allow teachers, for example, in the 3rd grade across all elementary schools to have time in the afternoon to talk about where they are in the curriculum. Are they in the same place? How can they help each other? And I think that's extremely important at all grade levels, especially elementary, across the curriculum. So that we value. So that's the elementary model in a nutshell. And again, we won't be flipping that. Some people talk, well, will the morning cohort become can we flip it? I think once people get used to a certain, and this is another positive about this document or this hybrid model, is it creates a routine. There's a daily routine for everybody and it stays consistent. And so some of the rationale for this, DESE prioritized our pre-K to 5 students as the ones that need to get back. They were on the top 5 list. We initially came out with our initial plan draft was pre-K and K. We got a lot of feedback from elementary parents in grades 2 through 5 that felt strongly that their children should be back in school as well. So, and we wanted to make that happen. We also believe strongly in the daily connection. And I think when you see the schedules, there'll be opportunities when the children go home, or if they're in the afternoon cohort in the morning, to have learning opportunities for them to complete their day. The youngest learners are least independent students with the least experience in school. We looked over our spring feedback, and it was pretty overwhelmingly consistent in this area that the younger kids, and I think for obvious reasons, independently have more trouble than the older children logging on, doing online work, holding their attention. So having them in school 4 days a week with contact with their teacher is exponentially better. Instructional methods cannot be replicated virtually. I kind of just, with the things unique to elementary, and again, those will look differently, but they can be done. And then I've spoken to this and highlighted this, the face-to-face in person is irreplaceable. The secondary hybrid in the orange phase for grades 6 through 12 would be a cohort model as well, alphabetically. And it will be a 2 days on, 3 days off model, which is, as you'll see later, very consistent with what our neighboring towns are looking at, and a very popular model. We researched this and took feedback on it. Did the pros and cons assessment with our task force, and this is what we landed on. And so cohort A, for example, on Monday and Tuesday would be a full day. We felt that the back-to-back days of learning together and with the teacher would be a strength of this plan. Meanwhile, cohort B is learning remotely. And initially, when I rolled out the first draft of the plan, I had mentioned that it would be synchronous, meaning that the B cohort would log in with the A cohort somehow. That may not be possible. We're going to have to work with our teachers to see how that is possible. What will be possible and what needs to happen is that cohort A and B are in the same class. So for example, 9th grade biology class, cohort A, half the class might be in that lesson and half might be home on that Monday and Tuesday. They're getting the same curriculum. Otherwise, you're only doing 2 days of learning a week and the rest is online. So we'll figure that out with our coordinators, directors, and the teachers. But we'll make sure that that is a robust curriculum and that both cohorts have the same FaceTime with their teachers, also are supported and have FaceTime while they're remote, and have assignments, whether that be flipped classrooms or other ways of learning. And I also want to mention the accountability, whether it's the orange or the red model or the blue model. The accountability is important. Student attendance will be taken daily and or by class. So students and families will be responsible and accountable for their attendance. Grades will be kept, typical to normal grading in report cards. So students will be assessed. So we think that's very important. And students will receive regular feedback in a strong and viable curriculum. So those are obviously all intact here. Wednesdays, you see consistent with the elementary model. Students would be home, similar. opportunity for secondary staff to connect with families, students, support models, also office hours possibly for teachers to work with students that want some extra credit, extra help. So we've got a lot of opportunities there to meet kids where they're at and to also support any students that are struggling. And then again, the same teacher collaboration for the second half of the day. And on Thursday and Friday, now cohort B would come into school physically. I think what's left out in this plan too is the middle would be a deep cleaning. Our cleaning model is also included pretty specifically in the plan. So again, why this model? It's just some simple bullet points here. Increased opportunity for face-to-face connection between students and staff. All courses can be included in schedules for in-person learning. Now, this is very important as you go up in grades, especially at the high school when you have courses that you need to graduate and that count towards your college transcript. It's important that we keep as many courses as we can. It also helps keep our staff intact. So another reason for this model, it allows us through our scheduling for students to have still a very robust opportunity to schedule classes. Cohorts of students created alphabetically. Okay, I kind of went over that one already. And students with high needs in school each day. And this is true if I didn't mention this in the elementary model. Students with intensive special needs or needs in their plans quite possibly and will be attending the 4 days a week instead of the cohort. So if your child's in that situation in some of our English learner category and any other category deemed necessary by DESE, we will certainly honor that and welcome that. So there will be some students that will be going the full days, 4 days, excuse me. So, obviously a huge concentration on safety and mitigating measures. We've committed to the 6-foot model. Didn't feel we're ready for 3 feet. We want to go slow to go fast. Here's some pictures of what a classroom would look like. These were taken at the Gates School on the far left. The middle example is Cushing, and on the right is Scituate High School. We've done the pressure test, so to speak, from the state. We are able to fit in the hybrid model. We are able to fit class sizes to accommodate the students and fit the students with these safety parameters. As you'll see, although it's a picture, there's plenty of space to social distance, and the students will be wearing masks. This is a recommendation we have, and it's pretty overwhelming from all areas, and that will ask to be included in the plan, and it's something that wasn't in the original document. So I want the school committee to understand that we'll be asking as part of this plan that it be mandated that all students in pre-K to 12 wear masks, unless there's medical conditions or reasons why they may not. Certainly that would be honored. But that's a new piece that I wanted to emphasize. The state guidelines say grades 1 through 12 have to wear masks. We'd like to add that, and I think a lot of school districts are going that route just to try to mitigate any transmission possible. And then increased cleaning and sanitation of all buildings and busing materials. I know there have been a lot of questions on how we're going to clean our buses, how we're going to clean our classrooms, and I think that we do a good job in the plan of spelling that out. There is a plan for that, and we will be doing that. And then the fully remote plan, if you choose or your child's unable to attend school, this will be offered to students K through 12 through a virtually DESE-approved virtual learning and management platform. I spoke about this a little bit earlier. Ingenuity, and depending on what platform we get in Ingenuity, it could come with a teacher with it. A lot of our high school students have done this. I've used it in my previous district with a lot of success. Explains here in grade, we have used it here in this district in grades 3 through 12 for students with unique learning or scheduling needs, for core curriculum, credit recovery, intervention, and virtual learning opportunities. I also want to mention our commitment to having staff connecting regularly with our students as well. So even if you choose remotely and use this online platform, there'll be regular connections with our staff, support, oversight. And we're also going to work hard with our teachers to create community engagement opportunities for these children. So for example, if you're a 3rd grader and you're learning remotely from home, we're going to spend a lot of time figuring out how we can get that child connected to the cohort that he or she is in socially and connected that way, and also curriculum-wise. So that's a big piece there that we're working on. I think will enhance that plan to make sure that those children are kept in the loop. So when they move on, or should they return later in the year, that they stay connected with their classes somehow. So I mentioned this earlier, our Scituate Online Learning Academy. If you see the acronym on the right, these are some things we want to commit to in our new plan. This is the red phase. This would be, for example, if the superintendent, through using metrics in consultation with the school committee, had to shut schools down, or the governor shut schools down, we'd go right to this phase smoothly. This would also be used if we talked about this a little earlier, if we had potentially a snow day and we wanted to use this method, we could transition into this. And so we're looking for rigor and resiliency, equitable access, mastery of high standards, opportunities for all, and teacher and student connections, and empowering accountability. I think that statement, it was really well done and well stated, and the feedback we've received encompasses a lot of what we want SOLA to look like. I kind of mentioned the first one. The second bullet here, we want this to replicate a typical school as much as possible with structure and accountability. Grading attendance, I talked about, the same rigor, because you're going to have the teacher with you. So think of it as the middle school schedule. The students would follow that schedule via Zoom or Google Meet with their classes, and their teachers learning on the other end. I know that wasn't the case necessarily in the spring. That has changed in this model. We want to replicate, like I said, in-person learning as much as possible. That includes the social interaction, social emotional learning, and support from our educators. Consistent curriculum instruction across each grade level. We talked about that in our ability now in this age of Zoom to connect with our educators if we provide that Wednesday time. And in this red phase, teachers would also have that time to work together and collaborate to ensure that our instruction is consistent across grade levels. And Google Classroom for instruction, Aspen for grading, Zoom for virtual face-to-face. Now this is an important piece. We got a lot of feedback that parents really appreciated having one or didn't appreciate in some cases, having to use multiple platforms. If you were using Google, some teachers were using Google, if others were using Aspen, if some were using their own formula, they had to go over a lot of different places to find information. We'd like to commit to Google Classroom or a Google District. Our teachers have been trained in that, and they will be further trained in Google Classroom instruction, and so that parents across the district and students would know where to access information and get used to one platform. Aspen is our grading system, so that would be consistent as well. And then using Zoom for virtual face-to-face, having a district-wide subscription, so our staff could use that. And the reason we put Zoom, because I've mentioned Zoom and Google Meet, because I've been used to Google Meet. In the educator's opinion that we've talked to, Zoom just has more, in non-educators, Zoom just has more features right now and is more flexible and user-friendly. So that for that consistency, we didn't want one student to go in and have Zoom and then have to go to Google Meet and try to figure all that out. So that bullet's important because we're trying to establish consistency and simplify things for our parents and students and staff. So this includes daily face-to-face contact. That's a stalwart of this plan, different from a lot of spring plans across the state last year. And a lot of plans across the state last year didn't have a lot of accountability, understandably so. Direct instruction, that's a huge piece, huge difference from last year. And academic and individualized student support is also in place in this model. Use developed curriculum maps aligned to mass curriculum frameworks. So it's not a modified curriculum, it's the full curriculum. And the last one is this allows, oops, sorry about that. Allows time for teachers to plan and discuss student needs. And we addressed that, I believe. So, a very common area of concern, justifiably so, is classroom ventilation. It's explained in the document pretty thoroughly. It's aligned state standards on air functionality and ventilation. Just to update what's going on in our schools now. That's CBS Mechanical is supporting vendors. We got multiple vendors in the schools right now are working on our unit ventilators and air handlers to verify functionality. So basically, we're checking all our schools, the ventilation, things are broken, fixing them, updating them if needed. So that's happening. HVAC team will document adjustments made to all systems and will identify any areas of concern. District is in the process of contracting vendor to perform air quality tests in all buildings to establish a baseline and confirm all indoor air quality requirements of the Mass Department of Public Health, Bureau of Environmental Health have been met. So there's that it's a mouthful, but the Mass Department of Public Health, Bureau of Environmental Health have a set of standards that we can follow to set up safe schools with safe air quality. And so we'll be following those guidelines, and that's what we'll have an outside consultant come in and check that. That information will be posted and available for the public. And so I think that's an important piece of the plan that we wanted to address tonight. We'll be also checking for carbon dioxide, CO2, humidity, mold, etc. So a big piece is the air quality, and we're making sure that we're already working on that and we'll continue to work on that. Neighboring district plans, this is really important. I think the school committee charged me on my original document is, what are other towns doing? We don't want to be left behind. In my own personal philosophy is what's going to make us the best district in the world, and it starts with what are our neighboring towns doing in this challenging time, and we don't want to certainly fall behind. So in consultations, and these are draft plans. Again, the final drafts aren't due to the 14th of August now. Cohasset, Duxbury, Hingham, Marshfield, Norwell, and Pembroke are all on board for submitting plans at this time for hybrid learning models. And there's probably a multitude of other schools but that's kind of the area flavor I wanted to share and let the public see that we're not alone in this request. And a lot of those plans, quite honestly, are very similar to ours with the 2 days on, 3 days off. And as far as the AM PM, I think Norwell is also doing that. Scituate Public Schools is waiving pre-K to K fees. We wanted to put that on the table. Dr. Dutch coming on board, we're looking at, I asked him the question, can we afford to do this? And he just had a great answer when he said, we can't afford not to. We have to do what's best for families and with kids. And by having a half day to start, and potentially at any point we could go remote, we don't know. We don't want to get into a situation where we're creating inequities, where parents are charged with, well, am I going to pay for a full day, or am I just going to go half day or choose remote? Or are we going to start school and some families pay and some don't, and then we go remote and we get into this battle over who paid and who didn't, or do we reimburse? So I think it's best for everyone, because we're starting half days, and potentially if we go to a yellow or green model, it'll be full days. That relief there for families is known up front, that everything's equal. There's no fee. We want you to be in school if you can. And that includes pre-K as well. And so the next one is bus fees. A great question. If we're only going 2 days a week, do we pay the full? No, you don't. You pay the prorated rate, whatever 2 days is. For those coming 4 full days, they'll pay the full rate. So we wanted to make sure that was understood, that everything's up, and same with sports. If there's no sports, obviously there's no fees. So we want to get proactive in the fee structures and make sure that people understand them, and that we don't get into collecting money that we haven't planned for, or don't want to get in a situation where we spend money that we have to redistribute back to families. So the last bullet's important. We'll be sending out a survey next Tuesday, if the plan is approved, to families on a variety of questions, and one will be on, I know we asked this question already, but now that you've seen the plan, if you're going to use personal transportation or school transportation, vans or buses, and that'll help us get our count. We really need that to start planning our bus routes. And so we'll be getting that out, and we appreciate that back. We do encourage people to, if they can, walk or get their own transportation, to do so, just because of the fact that we're limited on the number of seats we can fill in a bus. and with multiple bus routes for the hybrid model and for getting kids back to school, it would be helpful to us. But certainly it's available. So we're not going, some districts have gone to state mandated beyond 2 miles. We're still going to make sure that every child is picked up if they want to take the bus. But would also encourage families, if they can, to walk to school or use personal transportation. So I don't know where these red lines are coming from. I don't know if they're visible to you guys, but on my screen, but maybe it's my computer. I wanted to end with this slide. You know, I've had a lot of sleepless nights, but I've had a lot of great days. And tonight was one of them, just being excited to present this plan to you. And I kind of wake up and I just looked at this picture and I really liked it. This is a quote you probably get sick of hearing me say, but it's one of my personal beliefs. Enthusiasm is free and it's contagious, but so is negativity. We must work relentlessly to achieve the former. It's a lot harder to be enthusiastic, just in general, let alone these very challenging times. You know, and graduation brought that to light for me, that education it should be fun, and it will be fun. It's hard, and it's harder now. But I think with all the work that's gone into this plan and with all the bright minds we have on this school board and in this community, I think we can look to the right here in that sunny picture and the bright skies. But we have to work at it, and we have to work together. We have to be respectful. We have to be we have to be flexible. And I fully understand that not everybody will agree, but I'm always welcome to feedback and conversations because we all want to get better. And so we're going to stay optimistic. We're going to stay enthusiastic. I'm excited for the start of school. I'm excited for the work that still needs to be done. As Mr. Hayes said, there's a lot to do. I think this is an important first step. So I would request, you know, everyone to read the document, to offer feedback, and that we plan this meeting tonight to give the school committee an opportunity to hear this, but also take their time to read the document. Just know in the future that documents will get out to you at least a week in advance, because we only had 2 weeks turnover from when the last plan was due. Actually, a little over a week till this plan was due. Please accept this on the day of. Like I said, we will try to avoid doing that so you have ample time, but that's why we scheduled the Monday meeting, to allow us and you time to hear feedback. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Superintendent Burkhead. Obviously, thank you again for your efforts, the committee's efforts. I know the school committee, we've received a tremendous number of emails that of concerns and questions and so forth. I think today's presentation begins to answer some of those. And as always, as you mentioned, there's going to be questions every day for the next year, I'm sure. I think the district is in great hands under Superintendent Burkhead and the administration and the staff in its entirety. What I'd like to do now is I have seen, surprisingly, I do have a couple of chats. I'm not going to address those right now. I will be saving those, and those will be presented to the task force at some point to look at. Some of these questions may be answered either shortly, or you may be able to see your answers in the longer document that you'll have access to tomorrow. At this point, I'd like to open up to the school committee for any questions for Superintendent Burkhead. You can unmute yourself and ask the questions.
I have a lot of questions, but thank you, Bill, for all the hard work I know that went into this document, and for your whole team. So I have a question about the cleaning in between the A and B cohorts. How long does it take to clean the school, the elementary school, in between those those times?
Thank you. I think I don't know if Bob Dillon's here, if he wants to jump in on that. We did calculations and we made sure that we had, I think it's an hour that we can have this, teachers have their prep time and lunch, and also allow us enough time to clean each building.
Mm-hmm. So if the teachers are, where are the teachers going to be when the classrooms are being cleaned?
On their lunch and prep time, so they'll have opportunities to leave the room and go to other areas. We're working on having areas for them to eat their lunch and social distance as well and have spaces.
Okay. All right, Bob, did you want to add?
It takes approximately 7 to 10 minutes to clean a classroom, or possibly less. And we were very proactive on this and had purchased some Clorox 360 foggers and some Victory electrostatic foggers that allow us to clean the rooms very efficiently. And we've gone through, we have 3 different products, one being BioEsk, which is good for peanut allergies and things like that. So we've tried to cover every base to make sure that everyone's safe in the classroom.
Okay. And is there, have you had a lot of discussions, Bill, about like walkers and people who are being driven to schools, of what the, because that's going to be another whole protocol. If kids are entering the school, you know, who's going to be, will they be required to, you know, enter 6 feet at, you know, line up? And I mean, sometimes they all come at once. So what's the discussion been around that?
Well, we just, honestly, we had initial discussions, just like you mentioned, like that's going to be an issue we have to figure out. So we haven't got into the details of what that looks like, but are very aware that we will have to do that, and how kids enter using multiple exits, and know that we have to have that planned out to the community before school starts. But each school principal will make sure that they have that plan ready, and are quite aware that we're going to have one, especially where different schools have you know, more walkers. The high school has the gates situation with middle school connected to the high school. So that'll be our next phase of our planning, is entry and exiting of schools.
And I mean, lastly, I know a lot of hard work went into this plan, and it is a good plan. I do like the plan, but my only question would be, do we have to dive right into the hybrid model? I mean, I just feel like we should do remote until we have, you know, we're sure that everything, I don't know. I feel like it's, my personal opinion is that I would prefer remote for an extended period of time before we are able to do hybrid. That's my opinion.
All right. Other school committee members?
Pete, can you call on us and then, so it's.
Sure. Mr. Hayes.
Janice, I appreciate your concerns about jumping right into hybrid, and I'd like to hear more about that as far as starting remote, the possibilities and the pros and cons about starting remote or going right into hybrid. So, you know, as we go forward, you know, I hope this can be more of the discussion. I really only had a couple of questions at this point. One was, as far as bringing children back to classrooms or keeping them there, and understanding that the country as a whole, Massachusetts and Scituate in particular, really does not have a sufficient testing capability. And that our numbers in Massachusetts comparatively to the rest of the country are very good, but our percentage positives are creeping up a little bit. I think they're over 2% now. And do we have a positive percentage figure, Bill, where we would go to Code Red?
Bill?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Hayes. Great question. In the guidelines from the commissioner, it has the superintendent working with the local board of health to determine those metrics. But also in our recent meetings, I think there's been enough support from superintendents that we want a state metric. We feel that the state should be making that decision. And so they said within next week and a half, they'll have some information out on that. So I do agree we need a metric. And I think the state should come up with that using health experts and having numbers ahead of time so everybody knows when we shut a school down or a district down, or when it's safe to go into a school or district. Right now they're using 5% as a guideline, but again, the details from the state need to be hashed out. We don't have that to this point.
Thank you. I mean, I personally would be comfortable with a 2.5% positive, but so we'll wait and see on that. My other question is, as we all know, and the amazing work that has been done so far, I mean, I can't comprehend getting this much accomplished as thoughtfully and quickly as you've been able to pull off. But as we go forward, starting tomorrow and until the teachers come back to school for 2 weeks, I'd just like to say that the more teacher inclusion in the task force and their deliberations and discussions, the better. Is that task force component or composition, is that closed or is that still open?
It's a good question, Mr. Hayes. It's always open. We've taken people, a lot of people that started at like 40, it's up over 60. I think that's now the task force, now that we've got a plan in place, will continue its work, but it'll be more of an advisory once the plan is in place to kind of go back to periodically and have a meeting and say, this is what's happening, what do we want to do? But so the answer is yes. There's room for inclusion. If we're missing a certain population that's not represented, we're certainly willing to do that. And the second part of your question, can you repeat? I just forgot.
Well, I think it had to do with, as we go forward, and get to the nuts and bolts of opening schools. Teachers need to be a big part of that discussion.
Thank you for repeating that. Yes. And so, our principals have talked about in our meetings this week during the steering committee about, and teachers have already obviously been given a lot of feedback. We can't do this without our teachers, paraprofessionals, custodians, food workers. So we're going to be reaching out to them right away now that we've got a proposal in place, and once it's secure, for their help. And we want as much feedback as possible. So I think things will start to transition from task force work to more building based on how we implement the plan at the building safely, how we strengthen the curriculum and what it looks like. And we absolutely cannot do that without our educators. So you're absolutely right.
My final question has to do with money. With all the HVAC issues and the inspections and the remediation that's being done, the anticipated reduction in busing fees and the free pre-K and kindergarten, which makes my heart sing. It's the best news I've heard since Christmas morning. But knowing that the town is with us, and this is and the selectmen have stated that what the public schools are going through is not.
Losing you, Mike. Mike? Mr. Burkett, can you hear Mike?
In our budget?
No,
Yeah.
but I got the gist of the question about budget. Mr. Hayes, I lost you, but maybe I'll try to answer. Can you hear me?
Yeah, my internet connection seems to be fading in and out, but it appears to be back now.
Yep. So I can explain, the budget situation, and it certainly, Dr. Dutch has only been here a few days, but we've been having conversations before he came on board, obviously. And, we got some decent news from Chapter 70 monies coming in, which are going to help us. The CARES Act, with a lot of these things we're doing, is reimbursable. And I will say I'm very optimistic about our communications with the town administrator, Mr. Boudreau. Has opened the door of communication, and I know Chairman Gates has made this a commitment to connect with the town. So if funds are needed, there's certainly that conversation that needs to start happening. But Dr. Dutch is looking at all that right now, looking at the Chapter 70s monies that we're anticipating coming in, looking at the loss of revenue from fees and balancing that and seeing what we have for CARES money. So at some future, hopefully sooner than later, school committee meeting, we'll have Dr. Dutch report out on that for you.
Great, thank you.
Welcome.
Mr. Long, comments or questions?
Yeah, I just have a couple. Bill, I know you talked about the oversight at the beginning of your presentation. So for the kids that are remote, can you at a high level just explain how we would track time on learning?
Yes, good question. So the Ingenuity model logs every time you log into it, keeps track of the minutes, hours, keeps track of the time spent. If it has a teacher, obviously, that's attendance is taken there. We'll shoot for that model. Again, it's an expense, so we'll have to look at that. But all that's documented through technology that when the kid locks on, we'll have a teacher, that's the teaching part of it. The Scituate Public Schools teacher obviously will be connected with certain children. And these may be some of our teachers that may not be able to return to work, may have oversight of some of those children when they're working remotely. So there's oversight, there's connections, there's check-ins, not only via the computer, but also socially and humanly check-ins. So we make sure we have that. So you may have the virtual teacher, but you also have a Scituate Public Schools employee checking in on you, and maybe even having cohorts within that remote learning cohort, because we really want to focus on the social emotional piece as well.
Okay, and we'll be able to work with families that have issues with Wi-Fi or accessing the technology. I know Scituate is well known for not having strong Wi-Fi across the town. I just want to make sure that if a kid can't get in during a Zoom meeting with their teacher, that they don't, get punished for it.
Absolutely, and that's a high priority as well. We'll be working on that, and we'll be, figuring out who those children are, those families are, and we've also ordered through the CARES Act a lot of new Chromebooks, and making sure that if the children also with hotspots and computer needs, we'll make sure that every child has connectivity and has a computer access.
Okay, and if kids are having a problem, I know you talked about material distribution in your documentation, are kids going to have the ability who are remote all the time, or, even the kids to go back in the beginning to pick up materials, hard copy materials, and then submit those as their work if they need to?
Yeah, that work is typically online, but if there is something to hand in, we've got, we'll make those accommodations, and that Wednesday is also a perfect time for that, where teachers are available. There's no children in the building. There's an opportunity for meetings with parents to pick things up, drop things off. So the building can, still have some movement in and out of it, and we'll work around the cleaning, the deep cleaning and teacher professional development to make sure that's available.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, one last question. Have we heard from the Metco director just in terms of how many kids we're expecting to come back into the schools? And then if they are in a hybrid model where they're only here for half a day, do we have a way to support those kids to stay all day so it's not 4 hours on a bus for 2 hours or 2.5 hours of education?
Yes, absolutely. I'm actually, I have reached out to Ms. Crawford, and she wanted to wait to see the plan before, the parent, like anybody, the parents decided on what they wanted to do. So I'm actually having a Zoom with our Metco families next week. So I'll be personally reaching out and asking them where they're at and how they're feeling about it, answering questions. And we should have some more, like everybody else, we'll have some more numbers on that. And the second part of your question, absolutely, those children that have to travel such a far distance will be offered the ability to stay full day, because traveling just as much as you're in school doesn't make a lot of sense.
Okay, thank you. And then the last comment that I have, so I know the document that you sent out earlier today that was 60 pages that we're going to post on the website is going to answer a lot of questions that families have, because it gets into the cohort information, the schedule. I know I saw one post someone showed me on Facebook earlier today that, at the end of the day for our families, it's the how just as important as the where. I'm glad that this is going to start addressing those questions for the community, just so that, you know, that rigorous expectation that our families are expecting and we're getting last fall, and, you know, obviously when COVID hit in the spring, it, you know, threw everything for a loop across every district. So I think that's going to answer a lot of questions. And I know you sent an email earlier, so DESE isn't requiring an approval on this until the 14th. I guess this is a question for the entire committee as well. Is this something that we should vote on the 10th, or try to wait till later in the week while we get more feedback, just in case there's anything else that we need to consider in the plan before we, you know, we vote it? I mean, at the end of the day, I think Mike said it at the beginning, this is the plan for right now. In a month from now, in, you know, 2 weeks from now, everything could be completely different, and the situation in Massachusetts changes, and we need to either go fully remote and not use this plan, or, you know, go forward with whatever the case may be. And obviously, you know, this is something that's going to be considered every day. It's not something that we start school and then, you know, look at it on a weekly or a bi-weekly basis. I guess I just want to make sure that from a committee perspective, we have everything ready and everyone feels comfortable voting. But since the extension was given by DESE that we voted, you know, if we have to the 14th, do other people feel like we need to wait, or are we able to vote this on the 10th?
Mike, Superintendent Burke and I had spoken previously about, we just received that the 14th deadline extension. We talked briefly. It's in my opinion that it makes sense just to vote this, or assuming we come to an agreement, vote it on Monday. That way, if we do approve it, we can get working on it and not lose potentially another week of making things happen. I think it's a committee decision. We're in charge of it. It's up to us. We do have an agenda set for Monday to vote on it. If we're not comfortable on doing that, we can certainly discuss moving that to Thursday and potentially voting it then. I'm in favor of voting this again, taking the vote. It doesn't mean it's necessarily going to pass on Monday, but if it does pass, or in any event, it's my recommendation to take a vote on Monday, but it's up to us as a committee to determine what we want to do.
Yeah, and I don't want to belabor this any more than we need to. I know that the information is going to go out to the town tomorrow. So, right. You know, people have 4 days to review it before our next meeting. I just, you know, like I said, I just want to bring it up to the committee.
No, I agree. I think it's a great point.
I'm not comfortable with this plan. I think the 63-page document that we also got is going to answer a lot of questions that people have.
Yep.
But I know since the chat is turned off and all the other comments are going to the task force, just making sure we have answers for all of those. Or if something comes up that we say, hey, we need to look at this again, that we don't just, you know, try to shoehorn in a vote.
Yep. No, I agree.
I mean, I'm not opposed to voting this on the 10th. I agree with you there.
Okay, I agree. And I think the most important piece here is that there's going to be some sort of remote component, some sort of hopefully in-person learning that's going to take place throughout the year. And this actual plan is probably going to change from phase to phase at some point during the year. So I think that it makes sense to get this in place and start working towards making it work. So yeah, so we can discuss as a committee at the end of this whether or not we want to vote it on Monday, or we can still have the meeting anyways and see what the outcome is at that point if we have a motion. All right, Ms. Brandolini.
Thanks. Hi. So I did read all 63 pages today before the meeting, and I think that teachers and parents will get a lot of questions further answered, as Mike Long said, when they're able to see some of the protocols and things related to, the COVID checklist for symptom stuff and all the different, ways things are going to be handled in the buildings. I think that helps strengthen people's faith in it. I guess my questions, I do have more questions about, but I think a lot of the answers are in the document if we have time to digest it. I think the plan feels very safe to me in terms of how it's been put together by the task force and the steering committee. I guess our big picture is, the COVID numbers, like Mike Hayes had said, if we see that threshold increase, we can have really, really safe plan. I just think teachers and parents, we have to make sure that they're taken care of in the buildings. I did go to Cushing School today, and I was lucky enough to be hosted by Donna Moffett, and I saw a classroom 6 feet apart and 3 feet apart, and hallways and outdoor spaces and outdoor classrooms. And I know everything's very preliminary and set up and things, but it did certainly ease my worries about how things will look set up. And even like that mental health side of things that brings worry to parents and teachers about how the workspace will be and how just the environment in general. I think that the plan is it covers a lot. I think it's better than most plans that I've seen, that I've read from other districts. And I think I've probably read about 15 plans this week. So I guess I'd like to see sort of how it sits in the community and see what some feedback is on it. And really, for me, it comes down to what the numbers are in the state and if it's safe for us to all be in our buildings or not. I mean, I'm going back to a building too myself, so in a hybrid model. So I think we still have those fears, but being in the building and seeing it and living it, I think will ease some of those anxieties. And I think we have to really stick to the protocols. And I do like in the big plan, the idea of having kind of like a pledge, a community pledge that we are truly have to support each other and follow guidelines and, be honest if we've left the state. And, if parents feel that their children are safe enough to be in school under this plan, I think that's their choice. And if teachers feel safe enough to work under this plan with all the safety measures in place, I think that's their choice as well. So personally, I think the plan itself is sound, and I just hope that the COVID numbers stay low enough that we can proceed forward with it.
Thank you. Any other questions by the committee? All right, Simona, I have a couple.
I was going to say some more, but I'll let you. You can go.
All right, thanks. I think the entire committee here recognizes that what our goal here is. We can't predict the future. We don't know what's going to happen, but we need to do what's in the best interest of our entire school district. I'll speak for myself here that there is no way that we are going to make every single family and situation happy and accept our goal. It's not possible. I'm willing to admit that. What we're trying to do is make the best decision for our kids, for our staff, for our town. I'm monitoring all the questions that are coming through. There's a lot of specific questions that may or may not be answered in the packet that you'll or the document that you receive tomorrow. But know that we are trying to address every single possible situation, but it's not possible. The leadership team, everyone involved is going to do the best that they can. This is a first for everybody, and every district across the country realistically is going through the same thing. I have confidence that whatever plan we put into place, if it's not working, we'll change that. With that being said, I just want to echo all the comments of the other school committee members. I feel that I guess what they call the transmission rate in town is really an important number to pay attention to. Obviously, we recognize that there's staff that don't live in town, and that those numbers may or may not be relevant to them. But I'm hoping that there's a way that I know that every week we get the weekly update from the town. I don't know if that's something that we can get more frequently, or if there's some sort of method and medium to receive that information. So I think that's really going to drive our models. And that, as mentioned before by Superintendent Burkhead, we're hoping that the state or DESI says at some percentage you have to shift to all remote. So I think that that's really, really important. So I'd like to make sure that we have some focus on that, and obviously we need some direction from above. I have a couple of questions, I guess. Some of these are in the chat as well, some that I had as well. Can you just go over Wednesdays again, Superintendent Burkhead, in terms of how that day will look? If it's remote learning and PD, how is that going to look? How can the teachers be doing or collaborating while it's also instruction?
Thank you, Mr. Gates. Sure. So the day will be kind of broken in half. The first part of the morning, teachers will be available to their students. And so at each, depending on the content area, grade level, whatever, there'll be a plan within a plan where those teachers will reach out to their students and be available throughout the morning in different cohorts. And that could be a morning meeting. It could be a check-in with, in the older kids, it could be a class check-in at this time for extra help. It could be a variety of things. So a guidance counselor will be available, obviously, to work with kids. So that first half of the day, the teachers will be working with children, so, or giving the assignment for the rest of the day. So that day will be remotely for the students at home, but there'll also be that commitment to interaction with our kids, and also for extra help and support for those students in the mornings. So that will be flexible. That'll be likely building even, class by class. So I think we want to give our teachers some flexibility with that in our departments, and have our department chairs and coordinators work with our teachers on figuring that out, but also with our counseling team and principals to support our student learning. So the students will have things to do. There'll also be some check-ins, but there will be remote learning on that day for everybody. And in the afternoon, the teachers they've connected with their students in the morning. The kids have their assignments for the rest of the remainder of the afternoon. Teachers then will have professional development and collaboration time.
Okay, thank you. This is a silly question, not a silly question. First of all, I appreciate the work that you and Dr. Dutch have done in terms of looking at ways to eliminate the ECC and the kindergarten fees. For those folks who have made a deposit or paid so far, I don't know if those checks actually have been deposited, but how will that reimbursement process look?
Well, I'll have to get back to you on how the process will look. I know we will return their money, so we'll guarantee that. So anybody that's paid, that's, for kindergarten or pre-K will get reimbursed. So once, I don't think Dr. Dutch knows that process yet either. So once we figure that out, we'll get on that right away, so people can expect their money back. And we know, it's important that people get refunded as soon as possible. So we'll make that a top priority.
Okay. I may be wrong, but I believe that those folks who make the deposits, I don't think it actually gets, I don't know if the check clears or, but well, appreciate your response to that. And I think this is a major milestone in our district. Obviously, it's just for this upcoming year, but we look to extend this in years forward if at all possible. But this is no promise that it's going to continue in years come, but we are working towards the no K, and believe we're on track to do that. Again, I'm seeing what I meant to do. This is now my third Zoom meeting. I meant to have all the school committee see all the questions that were coming in. Unfortunately, they're just coming to me, so I cannot respond to all of them, nor is this the forum to do that. I'm getting a lot of very specific questions. I'm hoping that the document that you'll see tomorrow will answer many of these. If not, again, this is going to be ongoing, and we'll attempt to address all the concerns that you do have. I guess the last question I have, Superintendent Burkhead, for now is, can you address a little bit of the task force thoughts on how families will deal with working parents and so on as we utilize the hybrid and/or remote model? What type of consideration to use for that, or how much of an impact it had on the recommendation?
Oh, am I unmuted? Okay. It was brought up, but I think, we struggle with that, because I think, the conversations are that, we want to get kids back in school. So the hybrid model does address that for a lot of working families, that they have the opportunity, and it's not for a lot of people going to be full on, nor should it be. But we also know that by bringing kids back into a hybrid model safely, that we're also helping some parents that may need to get back to work and have daycare issues. So although we can't resolve all of those problems, we think we add some consistency with these models that allow parents to have some flexibility in their schedule now, to have children back in school at set times. So absolutely, that was a part of our conversation, and trying to balance that in allowing kids to come back safely and in phased in approach. I think we've accomplished that by having some structure and some predictability to our schedules in our hybrid model.
Okay. I just think that obviously this is going to be a challenge. Again, this is not just a Scituate issue. This is a country issue. I think it's a challenge, and I don't think anyone has a great answer to that, but I just want to be aware that those will be the challenges that I'm assuming that we'll hear about, and hopefully work towards something that will work best for everybody. Any other questions by the school committee members?
I had just another couple of comments, and I know that I'm trying not to be negative, but I'm trying to just be realistic. And I feel like we're, really focused on the hybrid model when I think what I see in the community, in outside our community, are COVID numbers going up, people not wearing masks like they should, not social distancing. I mean, we're all seeing it. And I just wish there was some more information on what the complete remote learning would be like. I don't know who's giving me feedback.
Superintendent Burkhead.
On
the mute, can you not hear Janice?
I can hear myself. Twice.
And it sounds like two of you.
And you too, yeah.
I can hear you okay.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think we're all really nervous, and I think it's very unfair that this decision is being put in our hands. But I really would like to see more information about fully remote. I just really want to stress that, because I think I think that's where we might be headed. I mean, the first day of school is a month and a half away, and I'm really trying to be positive, but also realistic. I think everybody wants to see the kids back in school. I know the teachers want to get back into the classroom, but
I agree. I think. Janice, I just want to comment quickly. Is that I think that I agree too. I think that our experience, not everyone's, but most of our experience on the remote side, the experience in the district remotely was a challenge, because it challenged the teachers, obviously, because they're putting their curriculum online, something that they're not regularly doing. And I think that the general overall satisfaction wasn't fantastic. So I think as a district, we want to enhance that remote learning. So we want to make sure whatever remote we have better addresses what kids need. And I think that that's what I agree with you. We would like to see more about what the remote's going to look like.
Pete, may I say something?
Yes.
I had a question for Bob Dylan, if I think he's still or Bill. When you talked about how the schools will be cleaned, both with the fogging or the spraying and the ultraviolet lights. Does the science tell us the effectiveness of the method we've chosen?
Yes. All three products that we have will kill the COVID-19 virus and any flu viruses that it touches.
Okay, great. That's good.
Yes.
That's good to hear. Thank
All
you. And and Janice, I share your concerns. You go around town and you see people without masks, you see social gatherings in large groups. So, I mean, that's why, and I do share that concern. And the governor is so concerned about it, he's considering going back to phase 2. So I think we just have to, again, take it day.
We lost Mr. Hayes again. We lost him.
Peter, if I could piggyback off what Mike was saying about data and stuff, I think
I share your concerns very much.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mike. I think too, I think there's a benefit psychologically, emotionally for the kids with numbers being low as they are currently to have an opportunity to go in, meet their teachers face to face, meet their classmates face to face, kind of acclimate to the school year. If it is safe enough for students and staff to be in the buildings, I think we should seize the opportunity almost before we do have to go fully remote or something if numbers go up and if, cold and flu season goes and we have no other options. I think there could be a early benefit to being able to get them in front of teachers as long as it's safe.
I think that's a very good point, Nicole, as well, to get the kids into the building, to see the building, see the teachers. I mean, we don't want to be having to drag children into school because it's, they're nervous or afraid and they don't know what they're walking into. I mean, I had one child like that, but that was because that child was so attached to her mother, you had to drag her away. So, but I think you make a very good point that getting kids in there to see what's there, what's going on will be very beneficial.
Yeah. And I also think because we've all been apart so much and just being a part of a school community as an employee myself, I think I absolutely hear our teachers and their reservations and anxieties. I hold them as well. And I think being with your colleagues and being able to be in person with them safely with 6 feet in a mask is better than not having those connections. So I'd like to see over the next few weeks how Bill and our leadership team and principals and staff are really able to kind of take this and move all of these ideas forward, whether it be remote or a hybrid version of that. I think that if we can give them our support, that we're really going to stick by them and, keep them safe. I literally trust my children with these educators' lives, as we all do. So if the principals are leading and our leadership teams are supporting, and then our educators feel that support and guidance and help and, whatever tools they need are provided for safety and effective modalities of educating the kids, then as parents, we can feel that our kids are in safe hands. So I feel like, again, just using that chicken and egg analogy, it's like we're still a little bit glitching up on moving forward, but I think we're heading in a good direction as a district. And I think as the plans develop and as everybody knows, nothing can be set in stone. And that's the hard part of some of this work too, is all the effort from our task force and our steering committee and everybody and parents and thoughts and things that people are doing at home, thinking about, tutors and and babysitters, and the stress of that is like, we still don't know what we really need, but at least if we have plans that we can kind of put into motion when we need them, I think that will make the transitions better for kids. And that's what really matters here is them and their education and how they can access the curriculum safely and balancing that mental health of not being around their peers for so long. And really, I think there's such a pull of, nobody wants anybody in this district to get COVID-19 at all. I'm so scared to vote on a plan and have anything happen. That will be something I'm sure the 5 of us will carry with us forever. So we don't want to make any decisions at all that, put anybody at risk. But I think there's a risk-benefit weight here that's been mentioned by many people. And if the safety protocols meet measures put in place by people in the know, like our doctors and our nurses and district leaders and health professionals, mental health professionals, then I think we can safely follow that. And I think we really need to rally around our educators and give them the tools they need to feel safe. And I know that this team can do that for them. So I think we can.
One phone conversation I had today was with the leader of the middle school summer program that ended today, and how well that came off and how impressed parents and everybody was with, number one, the program, but number two, the attitude of the kids that were taking it, that they were, they wanted to be safe. They, when games and were organized and started being played, they appreciated the fact that one of the goals of the whole thing was to keep everybody safe. And there was next to no problems, complaints, disobedience. They were almost like they weren't even middle kid students anymore. They were human beings. So that made me feel confident going, one piece of the confidence I have moving forward.
I agree. That's a great point, Mike, because all the Scituate recreation programs that have happened this summer have been a great sort of little microcosm of what groups and cohorts would look like. I mean, there were 30 children at the 3rd, 4th grade basketball court in 95 degrees, bolting back and forth in masks. It was awesome to see, So I think, and all the instructors who are, some of which are SPS teachers, like they just snapped right into place and they followed the protocols and the kids had a great time. Same like you, I feel like other programs I've only heard good feedback about. So I think that gives us a glimpse even, to visualize what this could look like.
Right, I agree.
And they're going to be outside a lot. I think the deeper plan kind of gives parents a little bit more, and teachers a little bit more, insight into, as I don't want to speak for Donna, but as she said today, like they're going to be outside. I'm like, in the rain. And she said, why not? They're under a tent, right? So I think these little things that matter all add up to a big it can help reduce some anxiety.
Chairman Gates, may I respond to Ms. Lindblom's question earlier?
Absolutely.
All right, thank you. So Ms. Lindblom, you have many of the same concerns we all have, so thank you for articulating so well. I just want to be a little more clear, I guess. That metric will be in place and it has to be. And I think we've all mentioned it, whether the state comes down with it or we come up with it. I do think they will. And certainly the school committee's purview to make it even more stringent if we so choose. But I think we need that metric, and we can't predict what next week or next month will look like. But if we have that metric on, okay, this is what we can live with children safely returning to school, and we commit to it, we easily have the flexibility to transition into a remote plan. And I can share more information with you on the remote plan. We've got that. It's in the document. I think it does a real good job in there. We've got more information I can get to you on that. But I think it does allow us that flexibility to transition pretty easily based on a healthy metric. So I think once we agree on what that metric is, I think we have the ability to take that guesswork out of the equation and say, okay, this is what we deem safe. We do have the remote plan in place, ready to go. We do have the hybrid ready to go. What do the numbers dictate? And back to what Chairman Gates was saying, we'll be checking those daily. And I think we have to have, key is that we have the metric, but we also have the remote plan, and I think that's going to be very robust. And the strength to this situation is, challenge from the commission was that these plans transition smoothly. So I think we're ready to do that even now with our plans. We still have to obviously add the details, but the metric's the key point. And I'm hoping that a lot of people will be alleviated once that's set, that we all know what we can live with safely to transition our kids to school or what we deem as unsafe. And when those things happen, we are able to do so on the drop of a hat.
And I know that there's going to be a state metric, but I think one of the concerns is the asymptomatic people that come in and out of the building, the students and the staff, because those are the people that you don't know. They're not going to be in that metric, and I think that's a concern because they're asymptomatic.
And it's another infuriating situation that we find ourselves in, is that as things stand now, we have no way for the teachers' safety for them to get tested on a regular basis. And it's very distressing. So yeah. One thing I'd just like to add also in regards to the rec department programs this summer, I've been talking to a number of the high school coaches, and if MIAA cancels fall sports or the year's sports, I know all the coaches are interested in the students are desperate for some type of organizational physical activity that would normally occur after school until 5 or 6 o'clock. And Bill, I mean, has that been discussed at all at high levels?
Bill, Superintendent.
Yep. Thank you. Actually, I had a conversation with the athletic director and the high school principal recently that, I know they came up with some creative ideas last year. We have talked about the possibility of doing that. Just in one conversation. I think early next week, or maybe even tomorrow, the MIA should be, according to the commissioner today, should be giving us some more directions on where the MIA is at with sports. So once we get that, we can make a better decision. But I don't think that's a bad idea at all, because I think it's important if kids are in school, especially in a hybrid model, that there be some, and we talked about, some activities available if possible. But again, we're going to take our direction from the MIA first.
I understand that. Yep.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments or questions from the committee?
I just had a quick question on the.
Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, that's fine. I just had a quick question on the busing. So I know in the plan we were kind of pushing towards people taking their own transportation to schools. If we end up going to if we somehow we're able to get back into the schools full time this year, are we going to be able to have people make the option later on to either take the bus or not, or just have the ability to, at some point in the year, reassess who's taking the bus, and if families want to start taking the bus mid-year versus choosing to opt out at the beginning of the year?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely reasonable as people's situations change, to certainly welcome that.
Okay. I just know that people have to make the decision in the near future, so we can make the bus routes out. So I just don't want to have families think, oh, I have to take the bus now because I might lose it later on, or say, okay, I'm stuck with having to have my kid take the bus or paying to take the bus for the full year, even though I might drive them for half or most of it.
Yeah, I think that would be on a case-by-case basis, and we certainly would work with families on that.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions from the committee? I just want to restate what Nicole said. I think that she said it most eloquently, or probably how we all feel. This is a very difficult decision for everyone involved, especially, I think, the school committee. I hate to use this, but we didn't sign up for this, much like our staff, our superintendent. Nobody signed up to come up with a policy to get kids back to school in the middle of a pandemic. It's not my area of expertise. So we're all taking this very seriously. We're gonna make the best decision that we can. And I have faith that our final plan will be the best one at the time. I just hope that you can all understand that we're going to do the best that we can with the information that we have. With that being said,
so Peter,
yes.
I think you made a good point. And Bill, I guess my question for you is, so say we approve this plan on Monday, what is the plan going forward from 8/10 to 9/16, whatever the first day of school was, to keep families in the loop of, and our staff? Yes, we're tracking towards, having a hybrid model day one, or, these are the concerns that we have that we may or may not hit, just so that, throughout the course of the summer and into September, people are aware that, yes, we're still on track to a hybrid model, or, September 1st, we might, pull it back and say, hey, look, we're having some serious concerns for whatever reason, so we need to start remote, and not have it be a decision that we publicize at, September 15th or whatever the case may be.
I think the key to any good plan, or any failure to any good plan, is the lack of communication. So I think we've really been working hard on communicating, with starting our Thursday Thoughts weekly with our families. I think that will continue. That'll be one method we continue to keep people in the loop. But certainly we'll be able to react if we get some information in our news, or the governor makes a decision or anything like that. That certainly would go out that day. But we'll continue those weekly updates. We'll continue, the school committee and I, if you so choose, but I would recommend that we continue our weekly cable access updates. I think that's a good place also. So I think all the communication, we've been getting a lot of good feedback that people appreciate that. That we do that on a weekly basis, continue all those venues. And then the Thursday Thoughts getting 2,000-3,000 hits a week, so at least. So a lot of people are using that. So I think that's one good venue, but that would continue. And then if we had to, any real important updated news, that would go out separately.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Mike, that like we're voting on these plans and the procedures in the plans and the measures, but we don't know on September 16th which color will be at. Right? That's pretty, the health data could change, as Janice had said.
Yeah, and I'd like to respond to that, because I don't want your hands to be tied as a school committee. And I agree that, and I agree with, everything that's been said tonight about the difficult situation that you're all placed in with this. So I want to make sure that we have flexibility. I think that's the key word, and being nimble is the commissioner's word. So I think just because we vote on this doesn't mean we're locked into, we're locked into doing AB. It's your plan ultimately. That's the commissioner's word. So if we wanted to have, if we see the metrics going a certain way, or, we build those metrics in. But if you wanted to have a school committee meeting and make some changes to the plan, it's in your purview to do that.
Yeah, and I think it's important to.
Sorry, Mike Long, go ahead.
No, that's fine. I think it's important to just point out that this is the plan that we're trying to get back to normal. And at the end of the day, Nicole Gracia said this earlier on, and I think the whole community agrees that we want to get back to normal and get our kids back into the schools. But at the end of the day, we need to do what's safe for our staff and families. So while this is our hope to starting to get to normal, at the end of the day, if we need to back out and go to red or whatever the color may be, 2 weeks from now, 4 weeks from now, that people understand that we're going to keep that in mind and make that decision as soon as we need to, as opposed to, waiting for a weekend or the end of the week to make a final decision, because, this is people's lives. And while we want our kids to be educated and we want our staff to be in the classrooms, we need to do what's best for the community.
Right. Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right. So the next on spot on the agenda here is for our last point for comments, statements, and questions from the public. I'm going to limit this to, let's call it about 15 minutes. Again, I don't want to promise you we're going to respond to your specific questions. We'll do our best to respond as appropriate. If not, please respect that, and we'll take all of your comments under advisement. If you do have a question or a comment at this time, please go down to the reactions icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen and simply raise your hand. First person up is Jennifer O'Neill.
Peter, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, so first of all, I have a comment and then a quick question, and I promise you it has nothing to do with student parking. So my first comment is that, I've stated this to many people recently, I've had a child in the Scituate Public Schools since 2004, when my youngest started kindergarten, and my oldest started kindergarten, and my youngest is about to graduate in 2021. This has been the most transparent process I have ever witnessed in the Scituate Public Schools. There has been so much thought put into this and so much time, and every single stakeholder that wanted to be heard from has been heard from. Full disclosure, I am a member of the task force, so I have seen a lot of what's gone on behind the scenes, and I know there's even more than that than what I've seen. So that's my comment right there. So I just wanted to say, thank you to the school committee, to Superintendent Burkhead, to everybody involved in this process, because it is not easy. Now my question is, and it may be in the 63-page document I'll get tomorrow, but if on the 16th we are in a hybrid model, will all grades start in the same color? So will all grades, so if we decide we're going to go back, will all grades be in orange, or are there going to be some grades that are orange where others are red?
Superintendent Burkhead, I think that's a legitimate question.
Absolutely, and thank you for Ms. O'Neill, for your commitment to the task force. I really appreciate that. Yes, using that metric, all schools and all children will be under the same color. Our recommendation is orange, but again, depending on the metric, if it goes to red, we go to red. There is something built in into the document that you'll see from the guidance from Department of Education, that when we talk about the metric, you technically could shut a school down and not the district down. One school could go remotely. So that's something we have to talk about and build in our metric. But initially, all schools would be on the same color. It would be ideally, well, it depends again on the metric. But right now, the proposal is orange, and all schools and all children will be on that.
Okay, so I guess I'll be letting my soon-to-be senior know that we got to be watching out for whatever the colors are. So he'll know what's happening. And Peter, I guess my student parking will be back on my question list, but I'll save that for another day.
Thank you, Ms. O'Neill. And I should mention, as I call on you, if you could just state your name, and for identification purposes, if you're not comfortable stating your address, please just state the name of the school that you either have a child at or that you work in. Cheryl Pace is next up.
Hi, I see you have a lot of hands. I'll try and keep this quick. I'm a teacher at the high school and a parent in the Scituate community. And I don't know if Dr. Lang is still on the line here, but in regards to the proposed hybrid plan, I don't understand how it's safe for high school teachers to see over 100 students every 45 minutes in a week. Kids come to school sick all the time. So if they're asymptomatic with COVID, I believe the incubation period can take up to 14 days. So we're being exposed and potentially spreading it. I do also have a second question about the fogging machines that are taking place. It seems maybe more of an issue in the younger grades, where it might even be every day at that hour break. It's sort of like a pick your battles. What's worse, COVID or cancer, or carcinogens and endocrine disruptors and phthalates and hormone disruptors? So just something to be mindful of abundance of these really harmful, serious, long-term, irreversible health risks that could be happening from the chemical exposure is very concerning.
Yeah.
I'll just ask Mr. Dillon if he's still on the call. I'm assuming that the chemicals that we are using are, I guess, FDA approved, or?
Yes, they are, and they're all CDC approved also. Those MDS sheets will all be posted online so the public can see them.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Okay, Eileen Roddy, you're next.
Hi, Eileen Roddy. I'm the co-president with Nicole Gracia of the Scituate Teachers Association and art teacher at Gates. I didn't want the meeting to end without responding to Mr. Hayes's attempt to silence the statement from the teachers union. I just wanted it for the record to be understood that all of the school committee members and Mr. Burkhead were sent an email ahead of tonight's meeting as a professional courtesy with both the MTA's statement and our local union statement about school reopening. In that email, we explained that we were only intending to read our local statement, but I would like to say that at our most recent general membership meeting, we had 72% of our members voted to support the MTA statement as well. I needed to clear that up because Mr. Hayes indicated that we were not representing the majority of our members. And our local statement that Nicole read was approved by almost unanimously by our executive board. We as union leaders take our job seriously, and it's very important for us to set the record straight about the integrity and seriousness of how we represent our members. And I needed that on the record tonight at tonight's meeting because of his statements. Thank you.
Thank you. Greg Ranieri, you're next.
Thank you. I'd just like to state that I think the first slide of the presentation.
Greg, sorry, Greg, just your official name and your school that you teach at.
Yeah, Greg Ranieri, Scituate Public Schools Department Chair, STA Vice President. Just want to state that I appreciate the opening slide where it talks about going slow to go fast. I think that when you, the statement that the STA prepared really wants to set us all up for our collective safety and success. And that's what this is all about, right? Balancing and getting to that success point. And as I reflect on the statement that was read earlier, the common ground from everything that was shared by our school committee was reflected in that statement. I think there's a lot of common ground here. Everybody's eager and anxious to figure out what it is and to do it well. Just a question, as we think about hybrid models, embedded in any hybrid model is an understanding that there's going to be a robust remote model. And that is something that we need to really lock in on and spend some time on with professional development in those early days. Question, just Mr. Burkhead and just the group, and I believe this is still a relatively fluid plan and there's going to be discussion and reflection on it. Is there any way after that 2-week period, again, this is a suggestion or a reflection as I look at the plan, after that 2-week period of PD to start on red versus orange so that we build our capacity and confidence with a robust remote model, which will be needed in a hybrid model when we get to it? That's just my initial question would be is could we start with red, then move to orange, and then, and maybe set, when I looked at the timeline, and again, I know that flexibility is key for all of us, so that was just a reflection on the plan, and I appreciate the fluidity and the movement of the plan as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a quick response, Mr. Ranieri. I do hope that we are putting some time into our remote plan because I agree that as part of a hybrid plan and or fully remote, there's a remote component that needs to be stronger. Thank you for your comments. Peter Blandino.
Thank you. I'm a teacher at the high school. I want to make one comment first. To me, when there's a situation where there are a lot of unknowns and uncertainty, it makes more sense to begin with the safer plan and then to move to the the hybrid one. I think that would be a more comfortable position for a lot of teachers. And then a question, in the plan, families have the option to go completely remote, presumably because they might be concerned about the safety of returning to school and what that might mean for their children and themselves. Are there similar options for teachers who have that same concern built into the plan? It would be very useful for us to know this as soon as possible so we can start discussing options with our families. Thank you.
I can answer that, Mr. Gates.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Burkhead.
Yep. The reason that the parents and families have a choice is because that's the Department of Education guidance. The Department of Education does not offer guidance on teachers. In fact, it recommends that teachers be back in the building if they can. So we did send something out to our teachers recently that explained in detail all the new laws supporting any leave that may be needed to medical conditions or exposure or immunocompromised individuals. So I think that's going to be helpful. But at this point, other than that, the answer is that there will be an option. But I think the other point we talked about as a steering committee is, and I said it from the beginning, is working with our teachers where they're at, is, once we have a plan that we agree on and we get, going on this plan, and Mr. Hayes said it earlier, we're going to need our teachers' cooperation and help with this. We're a family, we're a team here. So I think once we get in our own buildings, our principals know their teachers. I think those conversations start to begin there. And for example, I'm a teacher, I don't feel comfortable, I need to work, with this group of children or that group or this grade or that grade. That's a conversation with the principal, and if there's flexibility within that school, then that can happen. But as far as making a choice that I can stay home and work remotely versus coming in, that won't be an option.
Thank you. I have Tibbetts family is next up.
Hi, this is Andrew Tibbetts. I have a student at Jenkins Elementary. So thanks. It sounds like it's been a great process over the summer putting together this document. Looking forward to reading it tomorrow. There's been a lot of discussion tonight about setting the town up for success on September 16th. What I haven't heard through that process is what responsibility the town can take on, what responsibility the families, the citizens can take on. And I think the school committee would do well to encourage families and encourage everyone to take the first half of September seriously when it comes to distancing and masking. Particularly looking at the revised school schedule, we have an additional 2 weeks. One of the slides had marked it as, an additional 2 weeks of vacation. I think it would help ensure success of the plan if everyone was encouraged to think of that as getting ready for the school year to start and take distancing seriously, take masking seriously, etc.
Thank you for your comments. I'll just mention that the weekly town update that happens Monday mornings at 9:30 on SCTV. I know that the town, Jim Boudreau, the town administrator, and the selectmen have been preaching that we still need to continue to follow the social distancing guidelines. I'm in agreement that we need to continue that, and those extra 2 weeks aren't necessarily additional time for folks to go on vacation and go out of state. It's really time to hunker down and take social distancing seriously so that we can get these kids back to school and get that rate down. So thank you for your comments. Next up is Lauren Shea.
Hi, thank you. Lauren Shea, Countryway. I'm a Heatherly parent. So I just wanted to, it's not a question, more of a concern that I'd like the committee to consider, and Mr. Burkhead as well. I'm concerned about the model for remote-only students. Mr. Burkhead, you said it's important for students to be back with their teachers and classmates, and this consideration should extend to remote students, not just for check-ins or fun times, but for instruction. I'm deeply concerned about the hyper-segregation that remote students might face with this model, especially since many of the students who need to be remote, it's through no fault of their own. They may have a family member, or they themselves may be compromised, their health. So I think it's important for students, especially younger kids, to be with other students during instruction, even if it's only on Zoom, and also be with a member, be instructed by a member of the Scituate school community. Maybe even combining all the kids in the second grade across the district into one remote learning pod online or whatever. And then I think it's an when, not an if, the district goes all remote, there will be two separate remote learning models. One with the Scituate Online Learning Academy, and then one Edgenuity with some check-ins from teachers. It just doesn't seem equitable to me. I know that there's no perfect model, but it's just a concern I have that I wanted to get on the record and for people to think about as we move forward into the next week. Thank you.
Thank you. Barbara Weichert.
Hi, I'm Barbara Weichert. I have 4 children that will be at the high school next year. And I first wanted to say I agree with Lauren. I think we need to be careful. I have 2 children with a complicated medical history, and it doesn't seem very equitable if I choose remote for them that they won't have access to their teachers and to their friends through no fault of their own. And the second thing I wanted to say is I find it sad that we're not supporting the teachers. You can see from their faces that this came as a surprise to them, that they had no clue this plan was being presented. You know, what are we going to do if teachers decide to take a leave, as is their right under the COVID Act? We'll have nobody left. You know, we can't hire 100 teachers in a 2-week period. The teachers took furlough days to help save the budget, yet we're taking away kindergarten fees. We were in such desperate need for money that every teacher in the district voted to have a lower salary, and we're not listening to what they're asking us to listen to. Thank you.
Thank you. Elizabeth Dorgan.
Hi, I have 2 comments, and I'm kind of piggybacking what the Tibbetts family said about the 2 weeks in September. And I can see that families might want to use that to get an extra vacation for going back to school. And my other question, I'm a teacher at all 4 elementary schools, and I'm also a parent of a Gates student and a high school student. And I've never heard any
Sorry, we're losing you.
Testing for teachers. And, you know, we look at the news. Can you hear me now?
Could you start over, please?
Oh, boy.
Yeah, you're in and out, Ms. Dorgan.
Okay, so my first comment was to piggyback the Tibbetts family and say we have the 2 weeks before school opens. And I know a lot of families will look at that as extra vacation and leave the state. So maybe the town could contribute to somehow suggesting quarantining people not to go away. Did you hear that?
Yes.
Yeah, that would violate state law.
Okay. Second, I'm a teacher and I'm also a parent of a Gates and a high school student. And in no way have I heard anything about testing teachers. And I think of my child going to school, and I know that
Ms. Dorgan, you're in and out.
that they're going to sit in front of. All right, I'm going to sign out then.
Okay.
I'll send it. I'll email you.
Can I, Pete? Can I comment on that? Just because I think I have the answers to her questions.
You may.
The first is, if parents take the 2 weeks that our teachers will be in schools by themselves, and they choose to leave the Commonwealth, and then come back, they would be breaking executive orders by either not quarantine for 2 weeks or re-entering the Commonwealth with a negative COVID test within 78 hours, 72 hours of them returning to Massachusetts. And I concur with Liz on her comments about testing teachers. I've been saying it for quite some time that we need to figure out a way. The federal government isn't helping us. The state isn't helping us. Nobody's helping us. The Commonwealth will have about 500,000 tests available due to their joining with 6 other states to purchase on their own 3 million COVID tests, but that's certainly not enough to make any good. And I spoke previously tonight about the need to figure out a way as a town to provide testing for our teachers to make them feel safer coming into school. So it's a huge
Thank you, Michael. Thank you. Because, you know, we can take care of the baseball players, but let's take care of the teachers too.
I know. Well.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Comment on that too real quick, Peter, if I could.
Sure.
I know some towns, mostly bigger cities, are like, I heard that Cambridge, I was in another meeting with school committee members who are also teachers, and it came up in that meeting, that Zoom, that Cambridge was partnering with the Broad Institute to provide some testing for teachers and possibly students, and that there wasn't a lot. It wasn't really good news. It was just that they're doing that, and there wasn't a lot to go around, and that they might partner with Watertown or something who's next door. I don't know what that would look like as a South Shore version. But I do know that there are little tiny, very small pockets of testing that are available to districts, but obviously large, more complicated districts than ours, and city-based districts. But I mean, it's certainly something worth investigating.
Right. And my comment is, I think that, as we commented earlier, is getting obviously we know that all staff don't live in Scituate, but we're trying to do the best we can in our town. And I think that we need to work with the town and get the word out there. It's like, listen, you need to follow these social distancing guidelines. But I am aware firsthand that there are sporting events that are taking place outside of our state. So if I play sport XYZ, I'm not going to name it, and Massachusetts is not allowing that sport to take place, these teams are going to neighboring states, playing a tournament and coming back. We can't control that. We can stress to our families that they shouldn't be doing it, but it doesn't mean that's not going to happen.
And if they don't come back either with a negative test, or if they don't self-quarantine for 2 weeks, they're subject to $500 a day fine.
But Mike, aren't there certain, I don't want to get in an argument about science, it's not my expertise, but isn't there certain states that they can go to and not have to quarantine?
There are some states they can to, the majority they can't because their positivity rate is so high. But if they are going to a state that, say, has a similar testing rate as low as ours do, then that would not apply, Pete.
Okay. And I don't want to get an argument about that because it's not what we're here for, but
no.
Students and families are traveling. I don't know to what states, or I know some states, but they are traveling, and we need to make them realize that maybe they should not do that. All right. We are over our 15 minutes. I'll allow this public comment session to continue. I think that it's valuable on this topic. Be reminded we have another meeting on Monday, which we will discuss this plan again and determine whether or not we will vote to move forward with it. That's going to be 6 o'clock on Monday. You'll receive the Zoom info, I believe, tomorrow. Milena Davidova, you're up.
Yes, hi. I'm a parent to a middle schooler and an incoming high schooler, and we are looking at either, we're looking at the option of online only, and I believe that families will be given that option from what I understand so far. Correct me if I'm wrong. My question was about the choice of Edgenuity for grades 6 to 12. Is that a set in stone plan, or is it still being looked at? Because a friend just looked it up and she said that they have really bad reviews and they don't meet accreditation for a lot of states.
Mr. Burkhead, would you be able to respond to that?
Yes, it's an excellent question. Certainly, that's the state's recommendation, and I can only speak from my personal experience with Ingenuity, that it's been excellent. And I just got the feedback from our high school principal that it's also been well received here. However, the answer to your question is no, we're not locked into anything. I think we need to coordinate. The ideal situation is that we have our own teachers working with our own students. Absolutely. So I think that's going to be, the next step. And again, I keep going back to what Mr. Hayes said earlier in the meeting, is the next step of this plan, once it's finalized, is to begin to work with our teachers and our coordinators, directors, and start saying, okay, how do you as the professionals see this plan connecting with the most kids? How do we make it practical in the classroom in real life? So to answer your question, absolutely. We don't want to use software any more than we have to. We want people in front of our kids. So that is still to be determined, but it all comes down to the available people we have and amount of places we can put them. But that will be a high priority, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer Tolton.
Hi, my name's Jennifer Tolton. I will have one child at Gates and 2 at the high school. Oh, sorry about that, bad timing. My question is it going to be the sole responsibility of the parents to report if the children are sick? And is that going to be the only way that we might know that COVID is possibly in the classrooms at the schools in the absence of testing?
Yes. Superintendent Burke, if you just talk a little bit about how we will monitor students' risk and entering the school. Will it be some sort of agreement or other that they'll need to
And likewise, my follow-up is, in the event that we do find out it's in the classroom, how is that notification going to be made to the families who may have at-risk family members at home? Like, I know, like right now, like sometimes you get a little note saying, oh, a child in your class has lice, something like that. I mean, obviously this is a bigger deal than that. And with HIPAA regulations and such, how are they going to be able to relay that information to the families that, perhaps COVID is in the classroom or is in the school if it becomes an issue?
Superintendent Burke, would you be able to comment briefly on that?
Sure. The nurse, in conjunction with the Department of Public Health, will handle those cases and be able to communicate that to all the individuals and families impacted, and do so, obviously keeping HIPAA laws with, compliant.
Okay. So is it going to be like a quarantine situation, like to individual classrooms, or do we just not know yet until it happens?
No, thank you for the questions. It's a real good one and an important one. It's very specific in the document you'll receive in the morning.
Okay.
It spells it out. So I'll leave it to that, because it's also in an appendix because it's that important. So if you have questions after that, I'll be happy to answer them.
Okay, perfect. I figured it might be in there. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, James O'Sullivan.
Hi, I'm a 6th grade teacher at Gates. I don't live in the district. I'm currently dealing now with my children having a different model than what we're going to propose, which is what their mom is going to propose. I find the whole thing terribly overwhelming. I wanted to thank Ms. Lindbaum and echo her concerns about, I don't understand why we couldn't have, and again, I'm repetitive and I'm being cliche, but we're having a meeting virtually as adults, discussing the safety of our children in person. And I find that I just wanted it on the record that I find that rather ironic and disconcerting, that if we can't meet as an adult group, what are we exposing our children to? So I don't really have a question. I'm overwhelmed by the process, and I wanted to get that on record. So I'm going to be quiet, but I wanted my opinion noted. That's all.
Thank you.
I appreciate everybody's hard work on the matter.
Thank you. Mary Lynn Callahan. Mary Lynn Callahan.
Hi.
Hi.
My question is if it's safe to go on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, why not Wednesday?
I think that that has been well discussed, and it will be in the document. It's part of the hybrid learning plan, recommended hybrid learning plan.
Clean the buildings.
Clean the buildings, but they have 8 hours after school's over to clean the buildings. It doesn't take 24 hours to clean a building.
I might be able to help answer that question, Mr. Gates.
Okay, go ahead.
Sure. The whole thing was to go slow to go fast. The Wednesday was, a break in the middle of the week to decrease exposure for our staff and for students and to keep cohorts separate. It's not obviously just to clean the building. That happens to be a good time to do it, but it's not the only reason, certainly. So it was just more about exposure and trying to mitigate things and have opportunities for our staff to work with students that need help catching up, more on a personal level, slow things down a little bit, but also in the afternoon to allow our staff to collaborate and connect so that our product can be better and that we can continue and improve, that we don't have to wait to monthly meetings to kind of work this all out. So it's a very good question, and hopefully we can get to a place where we can have the 5 days, but I did want to give you the reasoning behind that.
So who will the teachers be collaborating with on Wednesdays for students?
Well, they'll be with students in the morning and then with each other, school-based or content or class grade level wise, and also training opportunities for the teachers as well during that time.
So there's nothing scheduled, it will just be as needed.
I think you'll see that in the document that you'll receive tomorrow in terms of what the Wednesday schedule will look like. It should answer all of your questions.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, last question for the evening, Chris Lassard.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, I was having technical issues. Good evening, Chris Lassard, Greenfield Lane, Gates parent. First off, thank you, all of you, for taking this long night and answering our questions. I just had a quick one regarding masks. Is it have to be a mask with the ear loops like we commonly see, or are neck gaiters going to be allowed? Because I just keep hearing the word mask over and over, and I'm wondering if there's going to be a specific language or guideline on what those have to be.
Mr. Burkhead, could you comment on that?
Sure, I think it's pretty specific in the plan. I think we refer to it as face covering. The important part is that the mouth and nose are covered. So as long as that's the case, and I know what you're talking about the neck, those will be allowed.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Pete, may I make one statement, Pete?
You may.
And I just wanted to respond quickly to Eileen Roddy's comments. And Eileen, I'm not trying to silence the STA. And I say this very rarely. In the last 36 years, there has been no one in the town of Scituate that has supported Scituate public school teachers more than I have, number one. Number two, there's nobody that has worked as hard and collaborated more closely with the Scituate Teachers Association than I have. My concern is we're 6 weeks away from the proposed opening of school. And I agree, and I have stated since day one of this whole COVID process that teachers need to be more involved in developing cohorts and dealing with the practical aspects of our opening of schools will be. And I've been very vocal on testing for teachers. However, my opinion is that bringing these issues to a public meeting 6 weeks before school opens, in my opinion, was a mistake. It's going to unnecessarily confuse and disturb parents and students. And this does not have to be a controversial issue. I think everyone needs to take a deep breath and keep negotiating and keep working. I just think it was way too early to put these issues on the table. And I think the STAs
lost you, Mike. Mike, we lost your audio.
Statements. And that's all I'll say.
Well,
Mike,
Mr.
we
Hayes,
lost the last like 20
Mr.
seconds
Hayes
of
is
your
coming out. Can I respond, please? Mr.
not
Hayes
at
was-
the moment. Not at the moment, Ms. Roddy. Not at the moment.
I'll email the school committee tomorrow with a response. Thank you.
All right, last question here. We're going to call it is Kara Esch.
Hi, Kara Esch. I am a Cushing parent, and I'm going to echo what a lot of the parents have said about just making sure that the completely remote cohort has an equitable experience. And I know that I expressed some concerns this week via email, and I was pleased to get a response from Mr. Burkhead just about making sure that the kids still feel a part of their communities. I'm the parent of a very proud Cushing kind cat, and I would hate to see him feel as though he wasn't a part of that community. And one of the bigger concerns I have is that if it's a completely separate cohort led by different teachers, and the numbers just somehow go in the opposite direction of what I think we all know they will, which is, better, and, maybe he returns to school, how do you expect that transition to go if he hasn't even been part of an in-person class the entire time? Is that an option that a kid could go completely remote and then decide in, November or whenever that they want to go back to the hybrid model if that's what everyone else is doing and numbers look good?
Mr. Burkhead?
Yes, and that's in the plan, maybe up to 4 weeks before someone can transition back in for safety purposes and like you mentioned, for curriculum wise. But I think, we've talked about this at length tonight. I think that's a wonderful point you bring up. It's our intention to involve the children with their cohorts, keep them together. And we're going to need, the help of our teachers and our coordinators and directors and our principals to bring this plan together and see how it looks. We have to see how many teachers we have that are back healthy and able to work. And we have to see the numbers of kids that are in the buildings versus at home. And once we get those numbers, we can start figuring these things out. But those priorities of, teacher contacts and keeping cohorts together and the social emotional piece are very important to us. So thank you for bringing it up, and it's certainly going to be a priority for us.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that wraps it up. We have no other questions in the queue at this point. That went beyond my originally intended 15 minutes. But thank you for all the questions. Again, the committee, the leadership team, everyone is working on the best solution. It is not going to fit everybody's best ideas. We can't possibly do that. We're going to do the best that we can for our town, for our district. And we know that there'll be questions. We expect there to be questions on a regular basis. So We have another meeting on Monday night. We ask you all to join. I'm getting a couple chats here. I'll respond to one. I have one person here that's not identifying who they are. I said I'm not taking questions via chat. So if you have a question, please use the emoji reaction icon and raise your hand. We'll take one last round of questions. We're going to limit it. Cheryl Rydell.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Rydell. I have students at middle school, Wampatuck, and the high school. And I, of course, as everybody else has stated, I thank everybody for cool heads and the time that they've spent in committee trying to figure out what is basically an impossible situation. I understand that DUSI requires that school districts provide 3 plans, both remote, all remote learning, in-person learning, and hybrid, I suppose. And one of the things that I keep hearing tonight is that our sole focus should be getting kids back to the school. And I wonder if that's perhaps a DUSI requirement, but in terms of us as a community, we should be looking at the premise of getting the students the best education we can, given the resources we have as a community. I think there are a lot of unanswered questions, such as testing and what happens with quarantining. What if people leave town and don't quarantine properly? And I think it's not enough data for us to make a what could be a life-altering decision for some families and for faculty and staff. One of the limited resources we have is time. And I think that the fact is that given the upcoming flu and cold season and the eventuality that we're going to be remote anyway, that perhaps instead of calling hybrid learning the smushing together of remote learning and in-face learning that we have in the classroom, that perhaps the time would be better spent in really developing that remote model to see if we can more easily apply that to what the teachers already know, which is face-to-face. Those 2 separate models of education don't easily combine within a classroom. It's not easy to teach online. It's not as easy as simulcasting. There are so many issues, and I'm just not sure that we've addressed that to my comfort level as a parent of 4 children. I really have a lot of concerns. I really hope that there's going to be more public forums. I think the parents and the faculty and the staff have a lot more questions, and I found the initial meeting where Superintendent Burkhead reached out to families to take the time to answer every single question that came up. Invaluable resource, and I really hope that we take the time to do that as quickly as possible. And thank you again, Peter, for taking my question. I realized that I had done that incorrectly, and I appreciate the time.
You're welcome.
Can I respond to that, Chairman Gates?
Sure. Yes.
I think it's a great point, and I think that that will be certainly a priority to us. But I do want to let people know that we're working simultaneously while preparing this plan on a remote plan, a pretty strong remote plan, and so I think that the 2 don't have to be mutually exclusive, that we can do both very well and be prepared to do both very well. So I didn't clarify that enough, but I do want to say that we all simultaneously working on that remote plan along with the hybrid plan. So we'll be prepared for that.
Thank you. I will correct myself, Ms. Roddy. If you'd like to respond to Mr. Hayes's comment, I will give you 3 minutes.
Yes, I wanted to say that, I forget what he said at this point, honestly, but the issue is controversial. There is controversy. I feel that this is the time for the STA to make its voice heard, and it's the majority of our members And we can look at the survey of results on the members, how they feel about returning, how many of them feel that they're in high-risk categories. There's a lot of feedback from the staff that are expressing concerns about returning to school too quickly and not starting with a remote start. And I'm sorry, Mr. Hayes, but you did shut down Nicole. You absolutely did. This meeting is being videotaped, and I'm sure that anyone watching the videotape would see you trying to shut down the statement.
Let's not, I don't want any of these direct comments, please.
He gave me 3 minutes. I'm responding to what he said. Thank you. So my point being is that we have an opportunity at these school committee meetings to have our voices heard, just as other people have their opportunity. The teachers in our school system are extremely dedicated, and they are, many of them, most of them are extremely concerned. And that was the purpose of our statement. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that is finally going to wrap up. I see no other questions. For those that have chatted, again, all of your comments and questions came directly to me. I have recorded or saved them. I can't say you're going to get specific, you're not going to get specific answers to all these. Hopefully most of the information will be in the document regarding our plan. And again, this is just how we have to operate. Now we have 217 participants. We're not going to be able to answer, 400 questions. So thank you for sending them to me, and they will be documented.
So Peter, before you go on, I have a question on that. So in Monday's meeting, I just want to make sure we set the right expectation of the community. What have you talked to Superintendent Burkhead about how you plan on running the meeting and addressing the comments that either came up tonight or to the 2020 task force email or phone or however people are sending them in? I just want to make sure that, we have a chance in public to have that discussion. And as I'm sure once this plan goes out tomorrow, we're going to have a lot more emails coming in, a lot more phone calls. And part of the reason why I made the comment earlier about if we should meet twice next week was I know some other districts were doing public sessions, kind of like what Superintendent Burkhead did last month, a couple weeks ago, whatever it was. Should we do something similar? Because I know this impacts a lot of people, and I'm sure we're already getting a lot of feedback in tonight already. And I want to make sure that we take the time to address it either next week or in upcoming meetings throughout August, if we do approve this on the 10th, just so that we can continually answer the questions and keep our staff and community aware of what's going on, what the decision is, as well as giving people a chance to respond and have their questions answered, because this is a major, as we've heard from the comments tonight, this is a major decision. And not only for us to have a hybrid versus a remote model, but also a major decision on people sending their kids to school or being remote. And I just want to make sure that we keep that high level of transparency, and we do have the opportunity to make sure that all those questions do get addressed, at least in some kind of public forum.
I would respond by saying that, and as Ms. O'Neill stated, she was part of the task force. This has been the most transparent process that she's been involved in 16 years. From my perspective, I would echo that. Task force of roughly 60 plus the steering committee has allowed for public and other input. To the degree that we open it up to further public discussion, I'm not sure how efficient that is. I will defer to Mr. Superintendent Burkhead to get his thoughts on it, though I don't want to commit to anything at this point in time.
So I just want to clarify one thing. When I say, I mean, we have the public comment sections in all of our meetings. I guess it's just addressing those questions in public so that people can hear them and have them answered. At least having some way to continually update that FAQ list that I know Bill and the administration are working on, just so that people get those, any questions that are sent in, that the person knows that their question was addressed, but also anyone who didn't ask that question can see the question and the answer, just so that we keep that level of knowledge out there in the community.
I would have to agree with Mike, though, too, just because, I know things are crazy on Facebook right now. So I just think this is a place of full transparency. It's a public meeting, our school committee meeting. this is kind of where all the questions get answered openly, honestly, and transparently. And I think if we have that opportunity on Monday as, people, like I said earlier, digest the 60 some odd pages of further detail, more questions will come up, and maybe that gives us just a little bit of time to really fine tune a little further as we continue down this road day by day.
So I'll, Mr. Burke, if you'd like to speak to that now, or if you'd like to discuss this to figure out how we can most effectively and efficiently have questions answered or asked and answered. I just don't see how we can do this in our school committee form as it is. I probably have, 40 or 50 emails, but a lot of these will be answered in 40 or 50 questions in the chat. Many of them will probably be answered in the document. Mr. Burkhead, I'd be willing to discuss with you how we'd like to operate potential question answer session on Monday to make sure that we continue this level of transparency.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say that, and I put this in the Thursday thoughts today, that the principals will be meeting with families. We wanted to get that we were going to have it this week, and then we changed it because the plan wasn't out yet. So we wanted to make sure that the families had the plans, so that next week the principals will be meeting with their holding forums similar to that I did with the entire community. So it's building based, it's more personal, and I think a lot of questions will be answered in that. Might be the best venue to get them answered with their principals once they've had a chance to read them, read the document, I guess, and the questions can be directed more specifically to the principals. So our principals have already committed to that for next week, and I think that that focus on transparency, we had planned ahead for that, and I think we answered all the questions here tonight. And I think the next level, we have to make a decision at some point so we can get the work going. And I think the part, I would recommend that happen Monday, and that the questions are, we're going to have questions, throughout this whole, which are great and have helped us. But I think also, once the plan's out, those questions will be directed towards even more specific details. And I think the principals will be best at handling those next week. So I just wanted everybody to know that will be happening.
Okay. And
that's a fair point,
okay,
Mr. Burkhead, because I definitely, after speaking with one of the principals that my children have, I think that you're right, that they have that ability to answer some of those very more detailed questions and school building specific community questions that come in, like, the parent that asked about the kind cat connection stuff. I mean, those are the specific questions that can get answered by principals. So I think that helps take the edge off of things.
May I respond, Chairman Gates?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Yeah, I also think a good avenue too, Mr. Long, is it's a great question. We want to get everybody's questions answered. We have the frequently asked questions document. We can take the questions you have tonight, share them with me, and we can, any ones that aren't answered on there, we can certainly add. And I think that's a good avenue to do that, to answer people's questions, to make sure that they're heard. So I'd be happy to do that if you would like to share them with us, and we can get them updated on our frequently asked questions document and upload it and share it through our weekly correspondence as another venue to be transparent and make sure that people are being heard. It also helps us in refining our plan.
And that's fine. I just want to make sure that we have a place where those questions are answered, and people can access them through whatever avenue we choose. I mean, I don't want to have a 5-hour meeting one night, but at the same time, I want to make sure that before we get to whatever the first day of school is, that we answer as many of those questions as we can ahead of time.
I agree. Okay, so that concludes the public comments and questions. Thank you again for your input. I know this is challenging for everybody. We're doing the best we can, and we have a meeting next Monday. Next item on the agenda is correspondence. To the school committee members, if you'd like a copy of Mass General Law 2020 manual, please let Kim Peters know, and she'll provide that to you. Next item are warrants. Dr. Dutch, you still with us?
I am.
We will need you to read in the warrants for the minutes.
Okay, and if the detail I'm providing is more than you're accustomed to and don't want it at this time, just tell me so and I'll back off. There are 2 warrants tonight, both of which were signed by Janice Lindblom. The first warrant is warrant S200730. The total amount is $386,152.14, of which $2,100 is from an IDEA grant that was billed. Insurance proceeds in the amount of $6,850.20. Transportation revolving, $920. Full day kindergarten refund of $300. And then our local LEA breakdown, special ed supplies, $126.67. Athletic contract service, $435. The lease of buses, $68,523. Private school tuition, the amount of $37,886.04. Collaborative tuition, $232,224.40. Transportation services, $100. Electricity utilities, $2,105.85. Gas utilities, $877.40. Contracted services for heat, $1,851.96. Pushing membership, $50. Health supplies, $1,137.62. Contract services for the copier, $7,445.90. Building maintenance supplies, $19,999.75. General supplies, $142.29. And IT contracted services, $2,076.06. Any questions on that warrant?
That is much more detailed than we otherwise get, but we're happy to hear it for now.
Okay.
How many other warrants do we have?
One more. And it's,
all right,
it is smaller.
All right, we'll hear them.
Okay. Warrant S200806. School lunch, total of, the warrant total, $247,086.37. $828.40 out of school lunch, $184.96 from the Metco grant, $1,100 for full day kindergarten refunds, $20.69 out of Cushing donations. From our LEA budget, special ed services, $4,000. Special ed summer expenses, $4,320. Lease of buses, $164,186.77. Custodial supply and contractual services, $31,357.50. Private school tuition, $23,108.02. Curriculum, $11,862. Telephone utilities, $617.49. Central administration supplies, $51.82. Contracted services, generator, $137.50. Art supplies, $2,967.71. Building maintenance supplies, $496.76. General supplies, $596.75. And IT contracted services, $1,250. Many of these supply line items may be reimbursable through the CARES Act as well through the county.
Great, thank you. Well, 4 days on the job, and you're already approving warrants or reading warrants. Thank you.
Pete,
yeah,
may I ask
generally
a
we
question?
don't. Yes,
May I
you
ask a
may.
question, Pete?
Yes.
Bob, it's a pleasure to meet you virtually. I hope we get to meet you in person soon. But were the monies on those warrants, was that all fiscal 21 money, or was there any fiscal 20 in there?
This was all fiscal 21 money.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? We don't need to vote on those because those were signed by Ms. Lindblom.
Yeah.
All right, next item, other business. Anyone have anything else they'd like to discuss? Nothing. Future agenda items. Our next meeting is obviously August 10th. You should all get the Zoom information tomorrow. We'll have to look at the calendar again on Monday probably to see if we need to schedule additional school committee meetings. I do want to reiterate that we do have a workshop with Mass regarding the superintendent evaluation process scheduled for August 26th at 5 o'clock in the Jenkins School, assuming that air conditioner is fixed. That's on our schedule. For some reason we have other business to take care of, then we would potentially forego that. But as we discussed, I think that's an important, not very timely right now with all this going on, but I think that's something that we need to address. Any subcommittee updates? We're going to have handbooks on our future agenda. We do have to confirm the school committee meeting schedule and the anti-racism resolution. Also, we have our Monday town weekly update that we're trying to rotate each committee member through. Ms. Lindblom, it's your turn. Would you be able to appear Monday at 9:30?
Well, I'm not sure. That's my first day back from vacation to work, so I don't know if I don't know if they'd like that if I'm late.
All right.
Yeah.
And Mr. Hayes, are you able to participate?
I can do it.
You're able
coming Monday.
Okay.
Just email me the details, please.
The details are be there at 9:20 with the mask on.
No.
Town hall.
Email me that, please. But yes,
Okay.
I can do it.
All right. So again, it's Monday. The tape time begins at 9:30. I'll send you the details.
Great.
Which are that. Anything else anyone would like to discuss? Otherwise, I take a motion to adjourn at 9:22.
I'll make a motion to adjourn at 9:22.
Motion by Mr. Hayes. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Brandolini. Roll call vote. I'm going to go backwards. Long.
Yes.
Lindblom.
Yes.
Hayes.
Yes.
Gates, yes. Brandolini.
Yes.
Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.